Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of rapid fire racing action and the much loved and much enjoyed League Zero Formula Series Season 18 has brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and proudly presented by none other than INCA Salsa. That's right, we're back once again. It is time for another round of open wheel Super Formula SF23 action and we are made our way to round number 2 today and we are here at the Watkins Glen International Circuit. Arguably the mecca of road racing in the United States of America and the revival place of motorsport in the USA after the Second World War, and it's easy to understand why. A circuit known for its fast-flying bends and its extended straights is one where momentum is absolutely key, and every mile an hour carried from corner to corner could be essential to victory. Here our drivers will definitely be trying to relive the glory days of the American Formula One Grand Prix, which took place at Watkins Glen in the 1970s. But don't fret, because it's not just about Formula One racing around here, with the circuit playing host on an annual basis the likes of the F1600 Championship and the F2000 Championship, and also previously having played host to both IndyCar and IndyCar Lights. Indeed, this circuit is just as much commonplace to open wheel racing as it is to close wheel racing, and therefore it means for our drivers they're going to be taking on venerable tarmac and looking to go for glory from lights out to checkered flag each and every time. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this post-round broadcast from circuit side as you tune in today, catching up with all the racing action as if it were live. Indeed, the racing you're seeing on screen actually occurred on Thursday the 26th of March 2026, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live today, this Friday the 27th of March. And therefore it means we do not know what is currently happening in the practice session going on in the background or the upcoming qualifying session, and most importantly we do not know the results of the races that are due to come out, and therefore it's going to be as close as possible to the raw live viewing experience for you guys and girls tuning in at home. In the commentary booth you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh from Paul Walsh Productions, and that's exactly where we can catch all the racing action from this season of the League Zero Formula Series on a weekly basis. Go to youtube.com and search for PWP or Paul Walsh Productions and you can catch it there. And as our drivers get ready to go racing today, well, let's walk you through your schedule for this broadcast. Times in Eastern Daylight Time, that's EDT, or Universal Coordinate Time -4, UTC -4. And as we can see there, in approximately what will be about 13 minutes time, we're making our way into our qualifying session. 15 minutes in duration, and at 9:15, we'll hear those engines get roaring alight as the drivers look to duke it out for pole position. After which we'll then make our way to the grid for the first of our 2 races. It'll be race number 3 of the season with a 10-lap sprint race. That's due to get underway at 9:30. And we'll take a brief breather before we make our way back to the grid once again. And it will be for the 30-lap feature race at 9:45. It's expected to get underway. 3 times the duration compared to the sprint race, 3 times the excitement, and also an absolute plethora of strategy being overlaid on top of the on-track battling action that we come to love and expect. As we make our way into this round, ladies and gentlemen, of course, the first thing we need to do for you guys and girls tuning in is bring you up to speed with the story so far after 1 round. Because indeed, whilst we've only had 1 round so far, there's been plenty of intrigue and plenty of stories from what happened last time out at the Red Bull Ring, and therefore let's not keep you salivating on the prospect of a story. Let's bring you up to speed with it. Because as we can see as we look to our calendar, back on the 19th of March, we began the campaign at the infamous Austrian circuit. Once the Österreich Ring, then the A1 Ring, and now the Red Bull Ring, but either way, depending on the names, what definitely happened there was something of intrigue. Firstly, it was a dominant day and a perfect score. Not quite a grand slam, he didn't lead every lap in the feature race, but he came close to it, and it was Jaden Calloway who absolutely stormed away with the pole position and both wins and both fastest laps. Nobody could quite hold a candle to him. And then the sprint race, the closest driver who finished 2.2 seconds behind was Adam Merchant. However, in what was the feature race, it was a very different story there, and we got to see the podium rounded out in the end behind him by none other than Finney Fitzsimmons and Elliot Court. Albeit we should give a shout out to Antonio Bianchi, who was the 3rd place podium finisher in the sprint race as well. But nobody could quite touch the performances of Jaden Calloway, and indeed, whilst he was absolutely dominating up front, it was mixed results for many further back, with a couple of huge incidents at the start of the feature race in particular, really shaking up the standings very early. Plus also we had the carryover some penalties from season 17 season finale at Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps that definitely served to upset things for some drivers. And perhaps the biggest question mark of them all was Elliot Court. If he had not had the qualifying ban, where would he have been in terms of the racing, given the fact that he showed a lot of pace, but he had to come all the way from the back of the field in the sprint race going into the feature race in order to be able to secure some points? Well, still, those are all what-if questions, but the certainty was that Jaden Calloway led every step of the way at the Red Bull Ring. But here we are today, then, for the Watkins Glen International Circuit, and our drivers will be taking on the boots layout. We'll tell you a little bit more about that very shortly. And after this round, we make our way to Japan for the first of 2 visits to the Asian country, and it will be at the Mobility Resort Motegi, or Honda's proud test circuit, that we'll see our drivers duke it out in round number 3 on the 2nd of April. But indeed, we've got plenty of venues to go to, but we are here today at the Watkins Glen International Raceway, and therefore let's keep our focus on that. But before we come up to speed with our circuit, let's talk a little bit about the championship standings, because we gave you the summary headline, of course, from what happened at the Red Bull Ring, but there's so much more detail that needs to be said. And so we look to the Drivers' Championship, and here is your top 15. And it's no surprise then, the On-Limit Motorsport, the OTL Motorsport driver of Jaden Callaway, is your dominant leader at the moment by 20 points over Adam Merchant. However, of course, it's only one round. Anything can happen over the course of an extended championship season. Now, Adam Merchant, it was quite an interesting day for him because he had a great start to the day, where third place in qualifying, just missing out on the front row. And do keep in mind, the top 4 in qualifying at the Red Bull Ring was separated by only a 10th, and it was a tie for pole position between Jaden Callaway and Elliot Rolls. However, Jaden Callaway was the one who set the pole lap first, and therefore he was allowed to take that pole position, and Rolls started second. But in the end, Rolls fell to third as Adam Merchant quickly found his way past on the opening lap, and then he went to go chase down Jaden Callaway. However, he wasn't quite successful in chasing down the win, but he was able to secure the second, particularly when in the midst of race number 1, we got to see a huge incident between Elliot Rolls and Finley Fitzsimmons on lap number 4 that saw them both eliminated from the race, and therefore it's the opportunity for Antonio Bianchi to sneak his way through into third place. However, spin things our way round to the feature race, and Adam Merchant did not have a happy day in the feature race whatsoever. Indeed, he was hoping to make it at least back-to-back second place finishes, but what actually happened in reality was that he took 6th place instead, because of the fact he started further down, started in 5th place, and well, the open lap incidents already catch out many a driver. Adam Merchant was one of them in that huge incident between himself and Antonio Bianchi going up into turn number 3, which saw Antonio Bianchi's car leap over the top of Adam Merchant's. Indeed, you need to go back to see that broadcast, ladies and gentlemen, to believe what happened, and Adam Merchant's car was relatively unscathed, minus some rather superficial damage. How the damage was done in terms of where he was in the race proceedings at that point, he had to try and survive for the rest of the race until he could get the car into the pit lane. Meanwhile, Antonio Bianchi's car was definitely out of the race, given the fact it came crashing down to earth and where its several parts came apart. Elliot Court, you could say a similar theme in the fact that, albeit he wasn't involved in major incidents, an incident that soaked the Spa Francorchamps in our season finale of season 17 meant that he would be starting from the very back of the grid for the purposes of the sprint race there, and came all the way through the field and almost found his way into the points. He finished in 11th in the sprint race, just missing out on a point, which would have been for 10th place, and then he made his way even further forward, and in the end took 3rd place in the feature race, and that's why he sat in 3rd. The DDK Racing drive then being followed up with Finley Fitzsimmons, of course our champion from season 17. It was not the way he wanted to start off his title defence, with only 15 points to his name, and definitely the sprint race incident between himself and Elliot Rolls really putting a stop in his progress, and he'll be hoping that today he can progress at a much faster rate. Fabian Sanchez sits in 5th for INCA X Competition 51. I almost said INCA X 51. Indeed, that team has gone through several name changes from INCA X 51 to Competition 51, but they are now officially known as INCA X Competition 51, and you'll see that change there for Antonio Bianchi as well, down in 8th place. So that's a team name change that you do need to be aware of, but otherwise no other teams have changed as such, although we have got some returning drivers and a returning team on the grid today. We'll tell you a little bit more about those in due course. And Fabian Sanchez sits in 5th on 14 points, one ahead of Jace Mayer, the Rodent GP driver, who definitely punched above his weight last time out and put together 2 very strong performances. And then Esteban Marquez sits in 7th place there for DDK XTH Jordan. And, well, he definitely had a lot of pace on the table, but unfortunately he wasn't quite able to show it the way he wanted to. Antonio Bianchi, well, a brilliant podium finish, of course, in what was the sprint race, but unfortunately in the feature race, things went very backwards and therefore only able to take the 8 points from the first race of the day. And in KX Competition 51 drive then being followed up by Leo Del Mar in 9th place there for Rodent GP, who's only behind based on result countback, given the fact he does not have a podium to his name. Then we do see Robert Nobles in 10th place there on 6 points, just ahead of David Schreikerneck, who definitely had a good debut, and we look forward to seeing plenty more from him, albeit he did, of course, make that interesting sacrifice in the sprint race. He was due to finish 4th place, but he parked the car up practically and let it gradually list towards the finish line, only 100 metres away from the checkered flag, so that way he could fall from 4th to 6th and take the pole position for the purposes of what was the feature. And when in that pole position, not quite working out the way he wanted it to, but still getting some valuable points on the board, and we look forward to seeing more from him. Raymond Aguilar, of course, your most coveted driver on this grid, with the fact he is a 5-time champion, the most successful driver in the League Zero Formula Series. Well, he did not have the season start he wanted, only 4 points to his name so so far, ahead of Carlos Balanas. And then we do have Matthew Devine and Matt Sparrow completing your top 15. They're both on 3 points. And outside the top 15 in 16th place there, it's Raf Alti, ahead of Gareth McAllister, both on 2 points each. And then we do have Craig Brick, Renison Lowe, and Arturo Mayorga completing what would be your effective top 20. Although you have to consider Elliot Rolls and also Austin Thomas all on 0 points with them. So therefore, they're all equal in effective 19th place. And in 23rd, with -5 points due to post-round penalties, we do have Xavier Zainav there for Raccoon GP. So that's how the Drivers' Championship stands after our opening round. As for the Teams' Championship, meanwhile, here we can see it's On Limit Motorsport with 42 points, 40 of those being from Jaden Callaway, 2 from Ralph Aldi. But to be fair, both drivers getting points on the board, that's the important part. However, there will be fierce competition from behind because you can see there the fact that we do have 2nd through to 5th separated by only 7 points and put DDK XTH Jordan in 6th place into the mix as well, further 2 behind. And when it's 9 points, they're separating 5 highly competitive teams, all gunning for the Team's Championship this season. Squid Gang Racing at the head of that pile, ahead of INCA X Competition 51. Then we do have Rodent GP ahead of DDK Racing. And then is, of course, DDK XTH Jordan. But the big theme of those 5 teams is they all had mixed results. They never really got to bear their fangs the way they wanted to compared to On Limit Motorsport, who are perhaps hoping that Rafalti was able to bring home a few more points there to give them a much more comfortable start to the season. But keep your eyes out for the Antarctican driver. I think he'll definitely be hoping for some better luck today. INCA Chips are racing on 2 points there, just ahead of their sister team of INCA Salsa Racing, who are a point behind them. And it's a further 2 points, 2 negative points for Raccoon GP, of course, due to post-round penalties for Xavier Zainav. And that's how your Team's Championship stands after our opening round. But talking about the standings, let's talk now about the present. Let's talk about our host circuit. Is, of course, the boot layout to the Watkins Glen International Circuit. Introduced in the 1990s with the boot layout, otherwise it used to be the more classic cup layout, if you will. But the circuit located near the village of Dix in Schuyler County of the US state of New York. It's definitely a classic one, and a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just for the brilliant simulator, but the absolutely brilliant track maps that come with it. And this circuit, consisting of 11 corners, 3.45 miles in length, it is one that's all about the flow, and our drivers will know exactly that as they make the way down towards turn number 1. 90 right as it's known, plenty of camber at the apex, and as they blast away out of the corner, it'll be flat out through the S's and on towards the next stretch. They'll be onto the inner loop there. No corner name for the bus stop chicane or inner loop chicane as they make their way through the right, left, right, and they'll be into the outer loop bend at turn number 5. Get it right, they'll power their way down into Chute Bend. It'll be downhill on the brakes and off camber at the apex before they make their way into the heavily cambered toe corner as they've definitely made their way into the proverbial boot. Coming out of there, they'll need to blast the throttle as quickly as possible and really abuse the camber and the downforce of their cars as they make their way onto the back stretch and into the braking zone for hill, and then going uphill in towards turn number 9, they'll transition their way back from the boot road surface back onto the classic cup course surface, and that road surface transition at turn number 9 can catch out even the very best of drivers if they get it wrong, and then they'll make their way into the sweep and left-hander of turn number 10 for the sharper right-hander at turn number 11 that always has the barrier on the outside. There's no runoff area at turn number 11. Indeed, you get it wrong, you're going to the barrier. You'll all be in bits just by the pits, but get it right, so you'll be going on to another lap in flying style. Alternatively, you will be seeing that checkered flag and with a big smile on your face. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, just before we do go racing, a quick reminder of the rules, because we can't go racing without them. Car setup-wise, this is a fixed setup series, with drivers provided with a setup of the administration's choosing ahead of each and every race round. And car fuel loads have been restricted to 40%. Qualifying, the session shall be open, so that means all of our drivers, of which we have 19 who have made the trip to the USA today, they'll all be on the grid together, and they'll all be looking to go for pole position. And keep in mind, therefore, they can try to use the slipstream off of one another, which will be very important here at Watkins Glen, but they also must make sure not to impede one another. But there will be no overtime at the end of the qualifying session, so at the end of the 15 minutes when the clock strikes 0, that's it. We have no more time available. You've got to get your lap done within the 15 minutes. You get no second chances. And race-wise, they shall commence by a standing start, as is the edition of the League Zero Formula Series, and drivers shall see a drive-through penalty if they get to 17 instant points. Get to 25, they will be disqualified. The grid for the feature race, meanwhile, shall be set based on the finishing positions of the sprint, and we'll see the top 6 inverted. So to put that in layman's terms, what that means is the winner of the sprint race, they start in 6th for the purposes of the feature, and we continue that inversion to the 6th place finisher, who starts on pole, and those who finish 7th and downwards in the sprint race, you guessed it right, that's exactly where they'll start for the feature race. And do keep in mind, there are no mandatory pit stop requirements in the races, but we do expect with the 40% fuel cap, we are going to see a pit stop at least for fuel in the feature race, and normally with it, because the tyres are also changed at the same time, we will see a tyre change as well. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's make our way back to circuit side then, and see how all all the drivers are getting on in the final throws of this practice warm-up session. And here is Esteban Marquez right now, looking much stronger today. This is good to see for 95 driver as he comes down in towards turn number 1. Currently 2 tenths off the overall provisional pole practice time of Elliot Court, who's parked up in the pit lane, and he's making his way on down, in fact. Should correct myself there. And the DDK Racing driver looking quick. And now knowing that he can go full attack here today, he has the right to qualify. And well, he's going to try and set himself the target of putting himself on pole. Finney Fitzsimmons is trying to do the same as well. But there's one big absence here you need to be aware of. We haven't spotted it already, and that is our championship leader, Jaden Calloway, has not made the trip to New York, and therefore, that's a bit of a surprise, but it opens up the door for an opportunity for drivers to try and go for as many points as possible. Now, of course, we do have drop scores in this championship. We have 1 drop score round for every driver, so therefore it does mean you can afford to miss 1 round due to personal circumstances, or if you're not feeling any particular circuit, but that means that Jaden Calloway will commit a 0 score to his drop score nice and early, and he'll need to be on the grid for every other round, otherwise he will be losing out. But who exactly is going to get it right? Who's going to lose out? We're about to find out, ladies and gentlemen, because it's time for qualifying. And who is going to be the quickest of them all here at the Glen to take pole position for round number 2? Well, it's time to see who can do the business. And so as qualifying gets underway, 15 minutes, it's go, go, go. And they'll need to hurry. There's no tarrying around today as the pit lane immediately starts to fill with cars. And as we do see Adam Merchant being one of the very first to make his way out, well, indeed, he's going to feel as though this is his golden opportunity to try and prove a point, which is that if he perhaps qualified a little bit better in the sprint, in preparation for the sprint race at the Red Bull Ring, he may have been able to take on Jaden Calloway. And of course, the instant between himself and Antonio Bianchi in the feature race, and the Red Bull Ring really blunting his opportunity to try and make it 2 second places from 2 and be a lot closer. But what an intriguing round it was at the Red Bull Ring, with everybody having difficulty other than our leader in the championship, who was able to take the perfect score. Now, I did say earlier on that we have got some new drivers to the grid today. They're new for this season, but they are very familiar faces. Indeed, you saw them on the grid in season 17, and they have been mainstay drivers of the League Zero Formula Series. And here is one of them. And indeed, the team that's back today is Rodent Drive Racing. Shahi Zahair from Sri Lanka in his number 10. Once again, great to see him back here. And well, we were missing them in the Red Bull Ring. It's not quite the same if you do not have Rodent Drive Racing with their absolutely brilliant luminous green, yellow and orangey red livery machines, with the main accent being the green, and they do have the additional flair there. And well, if Shahi Zahair's here, you've also got to imagine that his teammate Nick Peterson's here. And there is Peterson in the number 29, and he's back once again. And so happy to see them both here. And of course, their stories from season 17. Nick Peterson constantly chopping away at top 10 finishes and also chasing down potential top 5s. Meanwhile, Shahi Zahair having that infamous battle for the podium in the feature race at Road Atlanta between himself and Fabian Sanchez, and in the end was able to take it, goading Sanchez into a late error going into the chicane on the final lap, and that was the difference between the 2 of them. And Zahair having some huge highlights, constantly chasing top 5s throughout the season. Indeed, one of the most improved drivers over the course of season 17, and Peterson wasn't too far behind. So keep your eyes out for these 2. They may not be race winners, although they'd love to get a win. I think they'd be going absolutely hysterical down the pit lane afterwards if they were able to take the win. Indeed, you would see a real-life recreation of what would be the celebrations of Apex GP in the Formula 1 movie. And I think I've given away some spoilers there for those who haven't seen that movie. I'll be honest with you, I've only seen bits of it, but I've seen enough of it to know that I don't need to watch all of it. But as we do see all the drivers making the way of through, which are he's here right now coming through turn number 5, and the number 10 driver getting onto that first flying lap. But of course, the big question then, what exactly do you need to do to go for pole position here at Watkins Glen? Well, this is a very high downforce circuit. This is one of those circuits where it's all about carrying speed from quarter to quarter. That's why momentum is going to be so critical here. Whereas the Red Bull Ring, you had a circuit of 2 halves. You had hairpins and heavy braking zones at the end of long straights in the first half, and then you had sweeping bends and off-camber corners in the second half. Here it is all about maintaining that momentum through sweepers. There are no heavy braking zones at this circuit. You could say perhaps Hill at turn number 8 is a heavier braking zone, but there's nowhere around here where you're on the brakes for an extended period of time. It's all about seeing what speed you can shave off with light braking into each corner, and then abusing the downforce of the car to be able to carry the speed through the apex and carry on. And that's why this circuit was so popular in the 1970s for the purposes of racing Formula 1 cars. It was the original host of the American Grand Prix until there were some significant accidents. I do believe the infamous accident in 1976, although I can't remember the name of the driver who sadly I do believe who passed away, although there is a tribute made to them in the movie Rush, which of course retells the story from a cinematic perspective of the season-long battle battle between Nicky Lauda and James Hunt. But the Grand Prix moved away from Watkins Glen, also for the purposes of what was financial reasons. This circuit has been revived in the 1980s, and since its arrival, it's become a very popular circuit, indeed racing at a domestic and national level with regards to most open wheel series, including, of course, IndyCar and IndyCar Light, and also the F2000s. But to do well in qualifying, then you've got to abuse downforce. We mentioned that, and it's a bit of an intriguing nature of abusing downforce, because what you've got to do to be able to abuse the downforce in these cars, you've got to believe you can carry more speed than you think you can. Now, that sounds a bit odd, but let's try and put it in simpler terms here. The idea is, for the front wing and the rear wing of these cars to work effective, for you to be able to use the downforce, you need air flowing over the car. You need as much air as possible flying. The only way you increase the amount of air that flows over the car as you drive around the circuit is by going faster. So to be quick, you have to drive quicker, but you've also got to find what is the limit of how much speed you can carry into every corner. You cannot hold back, and this circuit in particular, you cannot hold back from any corner, because every mile an hour you lose going into a corner, it is added to at the apex of the corner, and you lose even more speed on the exit. You've really got to take the bravery pills around here and go all in, and in doing so, that's where the lap time is hidden around this circuit. And then add to that the fact we do have the long straights that connect the corner sequences together, as you can see on the circuit map on the top right corner of your screen, and therefore don't be surprised if you see several drivers trying to find the slipstream off of one another as the laps progress here. They'll start off by getting banker laps together, which we can see Elliot Court doing so, much like his teammate Elliot Rolls, and just in front of that is Adam Merchant making his way on around. But later on in this qualifying session, do be prepared for that teammates will try to slipstream off of one another, because there is about half a second's worth of lap time hidden in the tow around here, particularly with the long run through the S's at turns 2, 3 and 4 up towards the bus stop chicane, which is the entry point into turn number 5. And also you do have a couple of attempts hidden away in the connection between toe and hill, the run from turn 7 to turn 8. And that could be the difference between pole position or starting on, say, the second or the third row. Now, as all these drivers coming through, we look to Matt Sparrow, who's yet to get a valid lap on the board. He's currently all the way down in 19th place effective. Indeed, we have 4 drivers who've yet to get a lap together. But to be fair, we have some drivers with penalties coming into today who will not be permitted to take part in qualifying, but it will be back of the grid start in the sprint races. We will not be seeing pit lane starts. And those drivers are Finney Fitzsimmons for his instant with Elliot Court. In fact, Elliot Rolls, let's get the correct Elliot there mentioned. It was for his incident with Elliot Rolls in the sprint race at Red Bull Ring. And also we do have a qualifying ban for Xavier Zainab and Renison Lowe. Both of them having incidents in the feature race that were attributed to them by the post-race stewarding team, and therefore they are not allowed to take part in this qualifying session. But as we do see, Robert Noble's making his way around there in the privateer machine, and it's interesting that what has been MSR Purple have not entered themselves formally as a team for this season. I wonder if they will after this round potentially. Well, as we do see Noble's making his way on through, at least for now, coming on down and looking good, no doubt about it. But I think he's going to be hoping there's a little bit more to be done here as he roars his way around the circuit. And he comes charging on through at turn number 1 in towards 2. Well, very shortly, we will get on board lap with one of our drivers to give you a real feel of the lowdown, if you will, of what it takes to deliver a flying lap around the Watkins Glen circuit. In fact, as we do look to Esteban Marquez, well, currently the DDK XTH Jordan driver, looking a little bit quicker right now, and indeed much like in practice, he was looking impressive there with the top 5. Well, he's in 5th place at the moment, but notice how close those lap times are from 2nd through to 8th place. It is only 6/10, as Marquez runs a little bit wide there, can't afford to keep doing that. That's going to scupper his lap time and also take some life out of the tyres. He'll put dirt on the tyres, he'll lose grip into the next braking zone, and there's a multiplicative effect. Meanwhile, as he comes towards the end of a lap, Shahi Zahir goes on to a flyer, and let's jump on board him for a flying lap, ladies and gentlemen. So making his way in towards 90 right, braking at the 100-yard board from 5th to 4th, and now back up the gearbox he goes, as quick as that, flat out now through the SS sequence. This is all about full-out commitment as he rolls his way between the apexes and on to the next stretch. Now coming out to turn number 4 at this point, he gets a bit of a breather, but not for long as he gets ready for the bus stop chicane. You want to hit those curves, but hit them gently where you can. He's going to dab the brakes there if he needs to, coming through. In fact, no brakes whatsoever, just full commitment. Lift off the throttle and come down from 6th to 5th along the way. Now all the way through the outer loop and run as close as possible to that exit wall and in towards turn number 6. A dab of the brakes there, dropping down to 4th gear, and as he rolls his way through that left-hander, was the hair absolutely flying right now. You can see the commitment from the driver as he comes in towards toe corner, dropping down to 4th gear, then to 3rd at the apex. Oh, battling with power oversteer as he tries to get the hammer down. And Zahere immediately backs off there. A small mistake, but a big one. And, well, that's going to abort that lap as he tucks back in. But you can see the commitment and the fact you have to abuse that downforce as much as possible. You cannot hesitate around here. And speaking of not hesitating, remember I said at the start of the season at the Red Bull Ring, watch out for this man. And the fact that he's new to the Super Formula cars. It's Matt Sproul in the number 5. And last time out at the Red Bull Ring, he was chasing points in both races, albeit things didn't go quite right, particularly in the feature race when he was on course for a 7th place finish, but just missed out with a late incident, which sent him to the back end of the top 10. Well, right now, he's currently 3rd fastest. As Elliott Court and Elliott Rolls, the DDK Racing pair, seem to be dominating at the top, albeit we'll have to wait and see what they can do. And Sproul goes on to another flying lap, and let's jump on board with him as he takes us around. So, frying the car hard in towards turn 1. So long as you keep 2 wheels on the exit curb, you will be okay. That's within track limits. Now, coming up through the SS sequence here at 160 miles an hour, building more and more as the 4-cylinder 2-litre engine maxing out of its 550 brake horsepower. Now, getting ready for the bus stop chicane. It's crazy how they attack this. Of course, in closed cockpit, closed wheel cars, you have to brake, but here it's literally lift off the throttle, bounce over the curbs, and then just about keeping it in track limits there as he comes through outer loop, nice and tight on entry. That's a lovely line from Sproul. That's all the momentum you can take through there, and now in towards the chute bend. You see the car trying to understeer away from him, but he's wrangling it like a ball as he now gets ready to go in towards toe corner. Now here you want to go as deep as you can and come all the way down to 3rd gear to V-shape it off, and as he does so, getting on the power nice and early there, roaring his way down towards hill bend. And, well, where's the hair? Got it wrong at toe. Meanwhile, Sproul did not. Onto the brakes here for hill corner, coming all the way down to 3rd gear, the heaviest braking zone on the lap. Now up in towards the left-hander of, well, it's turn number 9. Connects himself back to the cup course here. Gently makes way out in 3rd gear. You can see the bit of hesitation there to get on the throttle because the rear of the car was still coming round. And through turn number 10, full attack there, now into 11. It'll be a dab of the brake here as he drops from 6th to 5th gear most likely. Runs as close as possible to that exit wall. My goodness, that's commitment. And what a lovely lap from Matt Sproul. And that puts him at a 22.787. So it moves him a little bit closer to the top 2. However, he is now 2 tenths clear of Adam Merchant. But Sproul is flying out there. And when this circuit seems to suit him a little bit more compared to the Red Bull Ring, you could say the Red Bull Ring was a bit of a baptism by fire by comparison with what it's going to be here today. But remember, qualifying is just one part of the story. And when we do go green flag racing, it's going to be plenty of intrigue there. As currently your slowest driver out there is Arturo Mayorga, the man who we must always give a shout out to, of course, because if it were not for his brilliant software, we'd not be able to bring you replays within these post-round broadcasts, whereby we are looking at an iRacing replay file, but through some technology that he developed, we've got the ability to take a look back at instance over the course of the racing action. So a big shout out to our number 55 driver. He's currently off of the times of Gareth McAllister, his teammate, though that's part of 7 tenths. But to be fair, he's normally a much better driver in the races. He's not the strongest qualifying driver, but he is very good at doing is just making his way up the order where others are losing their cool. Not this man, as he makes way a little bit deep there into toe bend. But I think right now he's trying to get a bit closer to McAllister and trying to use the distant draft of his teammate in order to help him move forward. Now Adam Merchant improves to a 22.805, pulls aside there. I think he feels like he's got everything done. As meanwhile, DDK Racing, once Fabian Sanchez off camera jumps to 9th, Leo Del Mar jumps all the way up to 5th place. What an impressive lap there from Leo Del Mar. And the number 21 driver here, well, how about that? Now, he's going to be absolutely proud as punch for that for Rodent GP. That is a very strong lap if I've seen one. That puts him exactly what is half a second off of the pole time. But look who it puts him ahead of, Ray Aguilar, and also then none other than Shahi Zaher and Esteban Marquez and Fabian Sanchez. It's so tight there for the 3rd through to the 5th row. And meanwhile, our 5-time champion making it his way up the hill. Different livery today. The livery of the team he's representing for the season, of course, of Squid Gang Racing alongside our Merchant. And we look forward to seeing what Aguilar can do later on this session. He's got 3 minutes to go. He is in the draft of one of the other rivals there. That is going to be Shahi Zaher's car, who he's following. Zaher runs wide, and Aguilar gets it wrong as well. Cuts track limits there, and that's going to abort the lap. He'll have to try and go again. Sproul's just leaving the pit lane at the moment and is on to an out lap, so therefore he thinks he can give it one last roll of the dice. But do keep in mind with fixed setups, the fuel tanks are restricted. They cannot firstly change the fuel load in the car, nor can they put it above 40%, but they cannot touch the fuel load. So in qualifying, you ideally want to stay out on circuit for as long as you can. You do not want to be timed back to the pit lane, because otherwise we put all the fuel back in the car by default, and the drivers cannot take the fuel that they have to burn it out. As meanwhile, Elliott Rolls absolutely burning the time here, 22.329. That's a monster lap from Rolls in the number 3. That's almost 4 tenths faster than anybody else out there right now. Rolls is absolutely on fire here. And I'll tell you one thing, he is making amends for the Red Bull Ring. He has got no time to waste here. I think he's definitely looking at the championship for this season, albeit Elliott Court, meanwhile, his teammate a bit further back. back, trying to stay in the distant draft. Now, Elliott Court is the fastest in the final sector of the lap. Meanwhile, Elliott Rose is the fastest in the first and the middle sector. So it really is the DDK Racing at 1-2 that's dominating proceedings right now, albeit I have to see if anybody else can sneak forward. Now, in terms of some surprises out there, Antonio Bianchi all the way down in 15th place for INCA X Competition 51. Oh, and he goes very wide there, almost to the barrier. My goodness, Antonio, you don't need to scare us like that. And well, I thought that car was going to be in pieces then, but not quite so. It's impressive how close they get it together. And these guys are absolutely fearless in these Super Formula SF23 machines. Indeed, you have to be driving them. You cannot hesitate with these cars. Japan's own equivalent of to Formula 1, if you will, albeit minus the super clipping as it's known in the modern day and age. But as he comes down in towards turn number 8, well, right now he'll want to clip that moment, most certainly. But with a minute left to go, everyone's going to be on their final qualifying laps now because they won't have time to deliver a full lap anymore, with the lap time being 1 minute 22. Oh, that's a sideways moment. They come through turn 9. Bianchi pushing too hard, and when doing so, he's going to invalidate that lap by taking off track. And well, now that means that he's going to be starting 16th at best as Elliott Court improves to a 22.442. And as Bianchi makes his way across that time line, what's it going to be here? Well, it won't be a valid lap. Do we get an idea of the time? No, it does not count at all. Meanwhile, Adam Merchant parks up after moving to third on 22.613. Feels as though he's improved. Meanwhile, we briefly lost our timing tower there for a moment. He does come on back. I think that was just a brief technical hitch there. But meanwhile, Elliott Court improving and puts himself to second place, a 22.442. So he's a 10th off. And all these lap times now coming to their conclusion. And the answer to this is going to be in terms of who's improved and who's not. Esteban Marquez, he's just set a lap, but it's not an improvement from 8th place. Fabian Sanchez still behind him. Jace Mayer in 10th place here, and well, it's going to be 10 seconds rain this session. Robert Nobles is going to be the last try to get a lap together. Sproul's not going enough time. Where does Nobles go? He crosses the line, and the answer, we're going to have to wait until we head to the grid, ladies and gentlemen, because we don't quite get to see it, but I don't think he's improved. I think he has stayed in 12th, and if so, he'll be a bit gutted with that because he was trying to push as hard as humanly possible. But as our drivers make the way onto the grid for our first race of the day, this is how they're going to line up for race number 3 of the championship. It's time to kick off round number 2 of season 18 of the League Zero Formula Series, brought to you on iRacing and proudly powered by none other than INCA Salsa. On pole position, Elliott Rolls, who leads a lockout at the front row for DDK Racing. A brilliant job from the two teammates there, and it's Elliott Rolls ahead of Elliott Court by a 10th. It was then a further almost 2 tenths back to Adam Merchant, who starts third today for Squid Gang Racing ahead of Matt Sproul. The privateer there definitely putting together a huge lap in qualifying and takes his first second row start of the season. Ray Aguilar starts in 5th place for Squid Gang Racing ahead of Arrive and Drive Racing's Shahi Zahair. Back to the grid once again, the Sri Lankan driver can never be denied of being inside that top 10 and very comfortably as well, almost inside the top 5. Leo Tomar was only a further 200ths behind him, the Frenchman from Rodent GP, ahead of Esteban Marquez there for DDK XTX Jordan, the pair of them locking out row number 4. And in row number 5, it's taken by Fabian Sanchez for INCA X Competition 51 and Jace Mayer for Rodent GP. But that's how your top 10 line up. What about outside your top 10? Well, Rafa Ortiz starts in 11th place there for On Limit Motorsport. The Antarctican driver just missing out on the top 10 by a 10th, with Robert Noble starting in 12th place, 2 tenths behind him. From the privateer for MSR Purple, will then be Arrive and Drive Racing's Nick Peterson in 13th place, ahead of Gareth McAllister for Inca Chips Racing, and those two separated by 1.3 tenths, and then being a further 10th back to Carlos Balanas for Raccoon GP, struggling in qualifying at the moment. Indeed, this is not the way that his qualifying was going towards the end of season 17, where he's getting quicker and quicker, so I think he needs to build up a little bit of steam. However, regardless, the biggest shock of them all, Antonio Bianchi, 16th place in qualifying, that will not do at all, and the Canadian driver is going to do a lot of work from there in order to make his way forward and secure some points today for INCA X Competition 51, with then Arturo Mayorga for INCA Chips Racing starting 17th, and then we did have your qualifying bands for Finney Fitzsimmons, the privateer, and also Xavier Zainab for Raccoon GP, who will be starting from the very back of the grid. So that's how they all line up, ladies and gentlemen, and all the drivers almost ready to go. As they do, Xavier Zainab, the only driver who has not made it into his spot on the grid, so therefore I think a technical issue in his car, but here come the lights. And it's lights down, away we go for our first our 2 races today as our drives all the way down towards turn 1. A good start there from Elliott Court. Elliott rolls a little bit slow on the launch. Adam Merchant looking up the inside, and Merchant immediately going on the attack there into 90 right. Takes second place for a brief moment, but both of them with the push to pass buttons on immediately here. 2 wide all the way up the hill they go, and as they do here, well, it's going to be side by side all the way through for that Jace Mayer there side by side as well. Esteban Marquez. Marquez losing 2 places at the start. He's trying to come back, but as they all roar the way past our static camera, look at the front of the field. Elliott rolls is comfortable. Court, meanwhile, is being caught out by Merch, who does sneak ahead into the bus stop chicane, but as they come back to us now, we can see there Elliot Court falling back into third place. Ray Aguilar's got ahead of Matt Sprell. Aguilar's had a good start there, moving up into full place. Sprell dropping one, but he'll be wary of the fact he's got a 5-time champion in front of him, and he'll want to try and learn from him, as Fabian Sanchez is 4 tenths behind. Sanchez jumping from 9th to 6th there, so good start from him. A bit further back, Robert Nobles as well from 12th to 9th place, so he's had a lightning start as they all make the way now into the second half of this lap. A bit of a slow start for Xavier Zainab. I think his car did start from the pit lane, in fact, so therefore he opted to start from the pit lane rather than the back of the grid, and I think that was a bit of a precaution there. They may have identified a technical issue with the car during the gridding procedure. As we see Esteban Marquez looking over the back of Jace Mayer. Well, Jace Mayer right now holding on. Remember, the driver who did move from MSR Purple into what has been the Raccoon GP machine. Well, Mayer right now in the number 77 looking quite good at the moment in 10th place. But everyone settles down very nicely. Oh, that's going to be a spin in the rear of the picture. That is going to be, I believe that's the car of Carlos Banas going all the way round on the exit of turn number 9. A bit too eager with the throttle pedal, cold tyres and a loose rear end. And it's all gone back to Zoom. He'll have to tow to the pit lane with the damage. But meanwhile, here comes a move from Rafforti. Look up the inside, Nick Peterson into 90 right. He's going to take 12th place back then. Orti returning to the places he's lost earlier on in this race. Well, Antonio Bianchi on the back of these two now. And Bianchi had a terrible qualifying session as Gareth McAllister has come into the pit lane. So I think there's a problem with his car as well. But as Nick Peterson goes side by side here versus Antonio Bianchi, will there be a bit of change rearward of the picture? We'll have to wait and see here as Peterson now trying to come back once more. But Bianchi is going to take that place. Bianchi up at the 13th place. Oh, goodness me, what on earth's happened in front? That's Robert Nobles. Oh, there's Peterson. Oh, no! That's going to be contact there, and that's all gone wrong. And I believe that was Nick Peterson being collected there. As a result, all the carnage, they all blasted their way through. It was too late for the yellow flags to be seen by the drivers. It's all gone wrong for several cars there. And well, I believe that is going to be Robert Nobles and also Nick Peterson in the pit lane and Jace Mayer as well. We'll have to give you an update on that when we can, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, Peterson is still going, but the car is crawling out there at the moment. And I think Peterson's finally towed the car to the pit lane off camera, so therefore we have lost 3 drivers as a result of that huge one. In fact, 4 drivers there, and we'll get your replay to bring you up to speed with what happened very shortly. But meanwhile, what's happening in the front is that Elliot Rolls is trying to charge away for DDK Racing. The gap's now 1.2 seconds. This man is flying right now. He's using all the track limits and also the extra tarmac. I think you refer to that as VAT, or value-added tarmac. And as they roll the way down towards turn number 1, well, right now Elliot Rolls absolutely here on a mission as Adam Merchant tries to keep him honest. But the problem is that's another 2 attempts going the way of Elliot Rolls. There you see Court, Aguilar and Sprell. That is your top 5. But Leo Domar in 6th place, ahead of Fabian Sanchez, followed by Shahi Zaher, Esteban Marquez and Antonio Bianchi. But he's looking ferocious. Antonio Bianchi in 10th place, very lonely at the moment, with 2 seconds between himself and Marquez and 2 seconds between himself and Raf Orti behind. So things are coming down further back. But meanwhile, inside the top 10, things are still blisteringly close here. And that gives us a perfect opportunity to take a look back at some of the big moments from the start of this race, as we do take a quick trip back in time, ladies and gentlemen, to find out what exactly happened to Carlos Balinas as all these drivers come through. In fact, we'll hold the phone on that one because that's Matt Burrell. Look around the outside there, Ray Aguilar had a bit of a poor run coming out of turn number 5, and Sproul going on the attack, but Leo Domar now looking for his chance, sipes up the inside onto the brakes, the Frenchman versus the Briton, and in the end, well, there may be a neighbouring countryman, but the difference will be the neighbours on the road, and Sproul will hold on for now, but where it's going to be Domar still looking for another opportunity here, coming in towards Hill Bend, but he's got Fabian Sanchez now breathing down his neck, and Sanchez sees the doors open there, with Domar going just that little bit deep, but the problem is on the inside into Hill Corner, it then puts you on the outside here for turn number 9, so therefore it is a little bit of a false move. But as we see Shahi Zaher getting closer here, with all the battling that's going on, this naturally will cause them to gravitate towards each other, and Zaher on the attack as the Arrive and Drive Racing driver, sponsored by HRC Honda Racing Corporation, looking to try and carry on down towards turn number 1. Now, fastest lap of the race has been upgraded to a 23.035. That's Elliot Court in 3rd place, so therefore he started to find a bit of pace out there. Adam Merchant did set a 22.897, but we are hearing that it's an invalid lap. It was track limit breaches. That means that it does not count as the fastest lap right now, so Elliot Court holds the most valid fastest lap as they make the way on towards lap number 4, and these laps definitely trickling down rather quickly here. More battles to come. Sprell and Delmar going side by side in towards the chicane. It's all for naught there as meanwhile Shahi's there also trying to do the same on Sanchez, trying to get into his mind, but in the end not breaking his rhythm, and that's where Mark is still watching on from behind as we do take a look back from some of the big moments at the start of this race. So this firstly was on lap number 1, the spin for Carlos Balinas coming through at turn number 9, and here got it absolutely nailed in terms of the speed, but he took a bit too much curb, and that unsettled the rear of the car and caused the weight to transfer aggressively. So that sent him around and a tow to the pits. We then had this for Jace Mayer, the big incident on lap number 2. This was coming through the chicane, and what exactly went wrong here? Will make his way on through. Looked like, oh, he caught the back there of, I believe, what was the car of none other than, well, I believe that was Robert Nobles he hit on the rear, and Robert Nobles was sent sideways. Jace Matt into the scene in that instant. This is what it looked like from Nobles' perspective, as we do get an alternative camera angle. He was the car in front. He had gone a little bit wide here, took a bit too much speed, and Mayo in the end was just too close to react at the time, and that's it. Nobles flying on around, and then everybody else came into the scene of the instant. Nick Peterson unfortunately collected there, and they were all in pieces. This is what it looked like from Nick Peterson's perspective. This was the on-board of Peterson for Rodent Drive Racing, and as he made his way through the scene of the instant, unfortunately tried to thread the needle, but the needle was just a little bit too wide for the gap it was trying to thread its way into. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we go back to your live racing. So did a huge run there, and we come back right into the thick of the fight, and as they're here trying to go up the inside of Leo Del Mar. But meanwhile, whilst this battle's going on, Esteban Marquez is now on the back of them. We've had a change of leader. Elliot Rolls has lost the lead. Adam Merchant's into the lead now. I believe there's been an error there from Elliot Rolls coming through the chicane, so he's dropped the place. That's come on to lap number 5. We're going to get a replay of that very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, but a huge run there, and right now change the lead after Elliot Rolls were looking so confident at the front of the field, and now DDK Racing find themselves on the back foot here. They're going for a double podium, but this is not the double podium they wanted. It's not a 1-2 right now, it's a 2-3 instead, so therefore they're going to try and come back hard, as meanwhile Ray Aguilar trying to catch up and help out his team out of Adam Merchant for Squid Gang Racing. They'd ideally like to make it a double podium if they can, make it a 1-2 as well. This sprint race definitely keeping us intrigued, as meanwhile Fabian Sanchez in 5th place, started to pull away a little bit from Leo Del Mar, who has got a header shot. He's ahead in Esteban Marquez. They're all together, and Tony Bianchi's still a little bit further behind. Finny Fitzsimmons, of course, still making his way forward here after clearing the wreckage on lap number 2. I don't think he picked up any damage from that, although he did have to really thread his way through quite carefully. The MSR Purple driver pushing hard, but Arturo Mayorga trying to chase down 11th place. Remember, there's no point for any position outside the top 10 in the sprint race. It's 1 point for 10th place. That's what Fitzsimmons will want, although ideally he'll want to finish 6th to start on pole for the purposes of race number 2, but that's a long way away. Meanwhile, speed of things not far away, too wide in towards the chicane. Oh my good lord, and that is tight. But in the end, Elliot Rolls gets back ahead there. I don't think there's any room for mistakes between those two. Rolls back into leaders race right now as they come down to shoot. Ben going defense out of Merchant, looks one way than the other, and in the end under braking, Elliot Rolls holds off for now. And Merchant right now, you can see the fire lighting up between these guys. They are absolutely aflame as they head in towards Toe Bend. And right now, Rolls having to go as defensive as humanly possible here, trying to get caught in, trying to get his teammate to help him out here, and essentially saying, please help me, as Adam Merchant's looking around the outside now as they come in towards Hill Bend. Is he going to go for it on the brakes? The answer is yes. How well would he go for it? Not well enough, it would seem, as they make the way through. We briefly lose Elliot Rolls to the ether, but he comes back. Hopefully not the sign of a burgeoning technical issue as they come around. Well, meanwhile, we've also had Matt Sprell into the pit lane. Not quite sure what's happened to Sprell, but we can see here Merchant side by side with Rolls, and as they roll the way from the left into right, 2 wide in towards the final quarter this time. And well, Adam Merchant just having to stay behind for now, but this top 4 so close together immediately. Rolls cuts the inside there, but Adam Merchant picking up the side draft as they get ready to go in towards turn 1 on lap number 7. It's 2 by 2 here on the inside. It's going to be DDK Racing on the outside, Squid Gang Racing. This is absolute team tactics, and as Ray Aguilar follows on through, we ride on board here with your full place runner. There's room for 2 wide for the S's, but you've got to be compliant with each other. He's going to try and find his way in, but here they go as they head up the hill. Keep it clean, guys. That's all we ask. It's going to be 3 wide. Oh, there's a squeeze to the wall there. That is going to see Adam Merchant going to the grass, and as they make the way on through, Merchant has to back off. The Aguilar gets the inside. Does he take that place? No, he doesn't. DDK Racing hold on 1-2 now. Elliot Rolls there really playing rear gun. He's enabling Elliot Court to pull away, and at this point we're going to sacrifice 1 driver's race, I suspect, in order to be able to take the win. And here comes Aguilar looking up the inside, using that experience as a veteran champion. All on the inside, and Rolls goes high, goes to the grass briefly. Now he's having to defend it in towards Toe Bend, but that's not going to work, and Adam Merchant covers him off immediately. My good lord, what an absolutely breathtaking battle. And well, I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, normally I can wax lyrical for ages, but even they're taking my breath away right now. That was absolutely incredible racing. And I don't think it's over yet, as Fabian Sanchez has caught up to the back of this, and also Leo Del Mar is right there with an incredible sequence of events there. Well, I can tell you one thing right now, if that's just a taste of what's come at the end of this race, well, we're definitely going to make sure we catch all of it. But how exactly did it all start? Well, let's quickly get you a replay of what exactly happened to see Adam Merchant take the lead initially. And here we go for a trip back in time. So this was Adam Merchant making his way side by side on down, and Elliot Rolls in the end. Oh my good lord, Rolls having to go to the grass there, carried too much speed, the car bounced around. I'm amazed that front wing has not come off of the DDK Racing car. That must be absolutely built of stern stuff. Alternatively, he's just been very fortunate, but Rolls almost losing that front wing. But after that, of course, there's absolutely epic battle on the start of lap number 7 as they all made the way on through. And just digest this, ladies and gentlemen. 4 drivers, 2 from one team, 2 from the other, and in the end it looked like a formation going on to lap number 7, but they battled their way in towards turn number 1 as they rolled the round around. Well, how tight it is through the S's here. You don't normally go more than 2 wide in these cars up through here, if at all wide. And well, in the end it was going to be side by side between Adam Merchant and Elliot Court. A bit of a brush with the wall there for Elliot Court, in fact, but Adam Merchant tried to go all the way around. He was pushed. Oh my good lord! When he was able to get away with that, I don't know how he's got away with that, Adam Merchant. He survived that contact to the barrier, and in the end the DDK Racing drivers really getting their elbows out, and no wonder Adam Merchant had to back off, and Ray Aguilar had a chance at it. And well, that was that battle. But back to your live pictures we go. And as we do, well, what's happening right now then as they go on to another lap, and very shortly I believe they're going to be heading towards the final lap. In fact, no, it'll be the penultimate lap there. We'll get ahead of ourselves, but Elliot Court in control and Adam Merchant behind, and we have Ray Aguilar and Elliot Rolls. Rolls has fallen back to 4th place, and well, we do see there Fabian Sanchez watching on in 5th at the moment, but one epic moment at the start of lap number 7 there, and how they survived it we'll never know. But Adam Merchant now pushing the threshold there at 22.235. His fastest lap so far in this race. They are really getting quicker and quicker, these drivers now. The fuel's coming out the car, and they've still got plenty of tyre life left. Everyone's absolutely going for it. Now, unfortunately, we have lost Matt Sprell from the front of the field, and we didn't quite see what happened to him, but he is in the pit lane due to damage to the car. But Sprell definitely would have loved to have been in this fight, so unfortunately, bad luck strikes again for Sprell after a very impressive 4th place start. But still, we look forward to seeing what he's going to be doing from back down the field in the feature race, and I wonder whether potentially he could sneak his way into the top 5 and not a podium position at the very end, given he has got podium pace here today. Still hasn't worked out for him. We didn't quite catch that on camera. We do apologise for that. But meanwhile, we do see Shahiz ahead chasing after Esteban Marquez, and then we do see Antonio Bianchi behind. So therefore, that's your top 9. Raffaelti in a bit of a lonely 10th place at the moment, on course for a point. So he'll be very happy with that and contributed to the OTL Motorsport team's aspirations, particularly the absence of Jaden Callaway today. But goodness me, can you imagine if Jaden Callaway was here as well, what this fight at the front would be? Presuming he had leading pace, we'd have to base that off of the Red Bull ring. But indeed, we can assume, as these drivers now make the way towards the final lap, and well, it's Elliot Court and Adam Merchant, your top 2, then Ray Aguilar and Elliot Rolls. So therefore, it is going to be a double Squid Gang Racing podium at the moment, as Elliot Court here goes on to the final lap. White flag is out, 1 to go here, and a 21.932. The 21s are coming in. Adam Merchant there setting an invalid time due to track limits. We can see all these drivers right now really pushing, and Adam Merchant hopefully will find a way a bit closer, but Court is matching him to a degree as they make the way onto a long stretch up towards the chicane. Shahiz ahead further back. He's looking safe from Antonio Bianchi with 5 tenths of a second gap from him, and also 5 tenths of a second to Esteban Marquez. So he's getting a distant toe there, which will equalise the slipstream that he's gifting to Bianchi quite comfortably. Fabian Sanchez, meanwhile, he's got Leo Del Mar getting a little bit closer. So Del Mar inching in nicely there as they roll the way down through turn number 5, doing everything he can here to carry all that speed. But Sanchez does seem to be safe here for the final top 5 spot, and Leo Del Mar at this point will be your pole sitter for our second and final race of the day. So I don't think he'll complain too much about missing out. He will miss out on a couple of points here, but the points he could go for in the feature race will be more. So remember, the feature race does offer more points on offer compared to the sprint race. That's the natural means of things, given the fact the feature race is 3 times longer on average in terms of lap count, and that's why it does have a little bit more of a reward with it. But as they head up the hill, well, Del Mar's getting closer to Sanchez here. Sanchez not looking too strong, as Del Mar really pushing the overtake button as much as possible. He's going to use up all 200 seconds before the end of this race. But meanwhile, at the front of the field for Elliot Court, he may have started second, but in the end, nobody has found a way to catch up to him. And after a ferocious battle, Elliot Court takes victory for DDK Racing ahead of Adam Merchant, who is your runner-up for Squid Gang Racing. And it's a double Squid Gang Racing podium there. Ray Aguilar taking his first podium of the season. Head of Elliot Rolls in full place. Fabian Sanchez will take 5th. Leo Del Mar will be your pole sitter of race number 2 by finishing 6th. Esteban Marquez there taking a comfortable 7th place. There to Shahiz ahead. Oh, a bit of contact between those drivers there. I think a bit of a misunderstanding. And Tony Bianchi rounds off the top 9. Raffaelti will take 10th place ahead of Finley Fitzsimmons. We came through the field to finish in 11th place, and it'll be Arturo Mayorga in 12th and Zaire Zainav in the end. Whilst he had a difficult start to the race, well, to be fair to your number 12 driver, having started from the very back of the field and from the pit lane, he is going to finish in 13th place. And no, that sets him up very nicely for the pursuit of points in race number 2. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a first race of the day here at the Watkins Glen International Circuit. We had an absolutely fiery fight for the podium across all 3 positions. And well, now as we take a brief breather before we return to the grid for what will be our feature race, let's quickly walk you through those race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries. And as we can see, after 10 absolutely intense laps of racing, Elliot Court taking victory there for DDK Racing, his first win of the season. Well done to him. Head of Squid Gang Racing's pair of Adam Merchant and Ray Aguilar. Elliot rolls, finishing fourth in the end. The DDK Racing try losing out in the late stages after that epic four-way fight. And Fabian Sanchez was never too far behind for INCA X Competition 51, but he didn't have the pace to match the top four, but he definitely had the pace to outdo everybody else and round off the top five. Neil Delmar took 6th place for Rodent GP, and whilst he was closing very rapidly on Sanchez on the final lap, in the end he'll be happy about the fact he will be your pole sitter for race number 2. Wester Marquez in at 7th place there for DDK XTH Jordan. The Colombian driver putting together a really good result, to be fair, and we look forward to seeing more of him in race number 2. I suspect he'll be looking for a top 5 in the next one. Shahi Zaher, the arriving driver racer driver, had a brilliant start, but also fell backwards in the early stages, and therefore it did mean that 8th place was the best he could do in this one. But from the Sri Lankan, it was the Canadian of Antonio Bianchi for INCA X Competition 51, and well, he enjoyed himself out there, even if that qualifying session was not one to boast about, but he made his way all the way from the back of the field into the points in 9th place. 10th was Raf Orti there, the OTL Motorsport driver for Antarctica. Definitely enjoyed himself and picking up some valuable points, the last of the points paying positions, with Finley Fitzsimmons best the rest in 11th place. Watch out for him in race number 2. We may see him come through. And then Toro Miorga was 12th, ahead of your final finisher of Xavier Zainav for Raccoon GP. But from them, it was the retirements of Matt Sproul, Jace Mayer, Robert Nobles, Nick Peterson, Gareth McAllister and Carlos Balanas, where Balanas ends up in the barrier coming out to turn 9 on the open lap. And then there was that huge instant going in towards Outer Loop Bend, which unfortunately saw the demise of Gareth McAllister, Nick Peterson and Robert Nobles and Jace Mayer. And we lost Matt Sproul a lap later due to an incident we didn't quite catch on camera, I do believe. So therefore, 13 finishes in this one, ladies and gentlemen, but still plenty more racing to be done. And as a reminder, that was your sprint race. And coming up next is your 30-lap feature race here, where we make the race distance 3 times that of the previous one, and we add a good sprinkling strategy in it with an all-important fuel pit stop, and most likely a change of tyres as well. But as our drivers all get ready for what will be another race, well, we take a look at those out there right now, keeping the adrenaline nice and high, including Arturo Miorga and Leo Delmar as they roar the way on around. Albeit in front of him, that is Finley Fitzsimmons there, I do believe, in the MSR Purple Privateer car. And Arturo Miorga in the INCA Salsa racing car right now. Well, definitely not quite on the pace of others out there, but again, doing what he does best, which is just staying under the radar and sneaking his way up the order very gradually. But this is one of the drivers you need to keep an eye out for in the feature race, because of course he'll be starting from the very back, a fully repaired car. But for Carlos Balanas, an innocent spin coming out of turn number 9. Was costly, and indeed seeing the car into the barrier, never something you want to have happen, but it does happen to drivers, and now he'll be hoping for even more in the second race today and hoping he can salvage some points out of it. Esteban Marquez, meanwhile, well, he definitely enjoyed a really solid race. He enjoyed a brilliant battle for the back end of the top 10. That's what we like to see, but now he'll want that top 5 if he can. I feel as though if he can break his way into the top 5 here today, he'll feel as though he's overcome a bit of a hurdle. He has been nipping at the top 5s throughout his time on the grid so far, dating back into season 17, but the problem has been he's not quite had the overall race pace to really take those top 5s on a reliable basis, and that's why he's always been close, but never quite close enough. But could the day be today where he breaks that barrier? Well, we'll have to see. What else can we take from our sprint race, apart from the fact the excitement at the front of the field? Well, we can definitely take the fact that the field was able to stay very close together, and if it were not for the instant going into Outer Loop Bend on lap number 2, I suspect we would have seen the field still all within a second from car to car all the way to the end of the race. Our top 4 were there battling. Well, they'll be grateful for the fact we actually did see the retirement of a few drivers fall backwards, as I think we would have seen even more cars brought into that battle as time went on. But still, that's the way it played out. And so it be, as Antonio Bianchi, meanwhile, going around at Hill Corner and putting a lovely streak on the tarmac. He toes back to the pit lane. That's not something you do want to do, that mistake. But then again, it's better to get it out the way in a session that doesn't matter, the warm-up session, rather than have it happen in qualifying, or even more importantly, in the race. But to be fair to Antonio Bianchi, as that's Elliot Rolls there, getting a bit too experimental with the exit of turn 11. That's the point we're making. You do not want to hit that wall, because it will pinball you straight to the pit lane. And Elliot Rolls there crawling down the pit lane, but I think that's inertia more than anything else, as he will tow. And that's how quickly a Supercommon SF23 car can disintegrate when you do get it wrong there. That barrier, it's a concrete barrier. It does not pull any punches compared to the Armco barriers that are around the circuit. And Carlos Panos right now, the only driver out there looking to do a warm-up lap. But given the fact we've only got 20 seconds to go, well, very soon, the warm-up's definitely going to turn into something more practical, as all these drivers be absolutely itching to score some more points. And in fact, as Carlos Panos comes back to the pit lane, well, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time, as he clips the wall there almost, it is time for us to make our way to the grid for race number 2 here, the 30-lap feature at Watkins Glen in round number 2 of Season 18 of the League Zero Formula Series, brought to you on iRacing and proudly presented by INCA Salsa. And so, onto the grid they go once again, and this is how they'll line up for race number 2 of the day. Leo Delmar, with 6th place finish in race number 1, starts on pole position for Rodent GP in this one. He'll be joined on the front row of the grid by Fabian Sanchez, who'll be pleased as punch to be on that front row. The Inca X Competition 51 driver will know he's got some work to do if he wants to try and finish on the podium. Elliot Rolls begins this one in 3rd place for DDK Racing. Now, lost out in the late stages of the sprint, but then again, he's got a lot of pace. We know he can lead this race on pace, but he will have the company there of Ray Aguilar for Squid Gang Racing, and he was improving with pace over the course of race number 1. Adam Merchant starts 5th there for Squid Gang Racing and just missed out versus Elliot Court, but to be fair now, he's got to try and put the proof in the pudding, which is he needs to try and score big here and get one step ahead of the 23 driver in the DDK Racing machine. That's going to be your top 6, and then it's going to be as they finished in race number 1 with Esteban Marquez starting in 7th place there for DDK XTH Jordan. He's going to have the company of Shahi Zahir alongside on the 4th row for Arrive and Drive Racing with Antonio Bianchi for Inca X Competition 51. Now that he's inside the top 10, what can he do with that starting position in 9th? Rafa Ulti, meanwhile, rounds of the top 10 there for On The Limit Motorsport. Outside the top 10, it's Finney Fitzsimmons in 11th place, and gradually made his way through in race number 1. Now he's going to have a nice shot of points here today, with Arturo Mayorga in 12th place, just alongside for Inca Chips Racing. Then Xavier Zainab for Raccoon GP in 13th place, ahead of Matt Sprell. And then for the privateer, it will be Rodent GP's Jace Matt, ahead of Robert Nobles on road number 8. Road number 9, it's going to be Nick Peterson for Arrive and Drive Racing and Gareth McAllister. And then we'll see from the Inca Chips Racing driver, Carlos Balanas, starting 19th, last but not least for Raccoon GP, and completing your starting order of 19 cars. Well, ladies and gentlemen, they're all set, they're all itching to go. We're itching to see how this race turns out. Without further ado, here come the lights. And it's lights down, away we go for the second and final time today as that drives all the way away. It's a slow start from Leo Delmar, and as they come down into that braking zone, well, right now he's going Fabian Sanchez looking around the outside. Meanwhile, it's going to be a cluster there, as we do see Finney Fitzsimmons trying to sneak up the inside to show he's there, but it doesn't quite work, and then he can only claim Rafforti, but making the way up the hill now through the S's. This way it's going to get tight, and look at them already fighting 2 by 3 as they get ready to go on to the next stretch, and that's going to be Elliot Rose and Fabian Sanchez side by side, but Sanchez losing out here a little bit, as you can see. Adam Merchant trying to come free in the middle of the road. My good lord, 3 wide into the chicane, but then they all sort it out as they go through, and right now it's Elliot Rose up in the 2nd place with Merchant behind Sanchez with him. Meanwhile, Matt Sproul's let it go round, not again. It's all gone wrong for Esteban Marquez as well. Where is Sproul in all this? I think Sproul survived it, in fact, so Sproul's been able to sneak his way through, but Esteban Marquez has not been lucky, so therefore it's gone wrong for him as Jace Mayer and Nick Peterson are together there. But right now, Tom Mayorga at the head of the group here, Mayorga right now in 12th place there, exactly where he started, not moving forward, not going backwards. We do see Xavier Zainab trying to look for a cheeky peek around the outside of Robert Nobles. That's not going to work there, says Robert, but in the end they're going to stay together even now as they power the way down towards a hill corner. But will Zainab go for the move up the inside? He's thinking about it, he really wants it, but Nobles are going to outbrake him to the apex there, so Xavier Zainab already getting to his rival's head a little bit. Looking to 4th place as Fabian Sanchez and Elliot Court together. Court trying to go round the outside into a turn 10 and put him to the inside of turn number 11, but do keep in mind, of course, the fact they do have that high exit curve, but you can always shake the car around if you get it wrong, so therefore he does not try to push it as they all make the way through and on to another lap. Now, after one lap, it's Leo Delmar ahead of Elliot Rolls. He's got Adam Merchant for close company. 1.2 seconds back and forth is Fabian Sanchez with Elliot Court, Finney Fitzsimmons, Ray Aguilar, Antonio Bianchi, Rafa Ulti and Shahi Zahir complete that top 10, and Matt Sprell's on the back of the top 10 in 11th place, best of the rest, and then you do have a 1.2 second gap to Arturo Mayorga in 12th. But Elliot Rolls here side by side with Adam Merchant. Merchant trying to use the push to pass button here to get ahead. He wants track position nice and early. Further back, let's go to change of places. That is going to be side by side. Finney Fitzsimmons trying to go around the outside of what is very regular, but in the end he has to be a little bit experimental with track limits to do so. I think he was just in there, and as they cover through, Aguilar still on the inside now to shoot bend. It's going to be 2 wide between them here, 2 champions of this series, and in the end Aguilar tight on the inside, the 5-time champion beating the 3-time champion. Finney Fitzsimmons into the wall. He gets it wrong on the exit of the corner. corner, hits the exit curb, and that car was only going one way, and as he grinds to a halt there, the frustration is definitely going to implode, I suspect, for Vinny Fitzsimmons, and well, he wanted it so much. Vinny was fair racing between them, but he just did not want to back out, and unfortunately paying the price that for the end for his enthusiasm, but you can't blame him for it. He wanted to get past Aguilar. It was fair racing, but he just ran out of road when he couldn't quite find anywhere else to go. But meanwhile, Raffaelti moving up into 8th place here, having started in 10th. The On Limit Motorsport driver really pushing forward now. Little by little, he's having a good race. As meanwhile, Nick Peterson on the back of Robert Nobles. And we've had 2 drivers retire from this race so far, but to be fair, absolutely brilliant racing up and down the field. This is race 1 all over again. And as they come down towards another lap, well, you can see here Peterson behind Nobles, but he's got McAllister just behind him. These 3 all together there, 13th through to 15th, with Carlos Banos and Xavier Zainab trying to get involved there. The 2 teammates for Raccoon GP looking to play a bit of a role. But meanwhile, Ray Aguilar here, he's got Antonio Bianchi closing on him. Bianchi looking for a way on bars, and Bianchi now making that place into 6th here. Aguilar back it off, and I think Aguilar playing the game. We should save some fuel and save his push to pass for later in the race. He doesn't need to use it right now. Change foot there. That is Nick Peterson getting ahead of Robert Nobles. He goes sideways. Does he catch it? He doesn't quite catch it in. The car comes loose, and for the privateer outfit of MSR Purple, it's all in pieces and bits here at Watkins Glen. Both cars are now to the pit lane. They've both been towed, and I suspect they're both out of this race. And if so, well, right now, it's not the way they've wanted their drive seasons to start. Either way, they may not be competing in the Teams Championship currently, but they do register as a Teams Championship contender. I can tell you one thing, they will need a huge resuscitation of form next time out at Motegi, because right now things have not gone to plan whatsoever. Meanwhile, Matt Sproul taking the place of a Shahi Zaher. They're now up into 9th, although Zaher tries to come back at him, a bit of a tap there on the rear. Just about survives it there. Zaher getting very, very close to be right aboard the nose camera here, which has been preserved for the Arrive and Drive Racing number 10. But I was wondering there if the front wing was going to come off the car, getting how close he was to the back of Sproul. But Sproul starts to pull away now as we ride aboard, and the speed they carry around this circuit is absolutely sensational. I'm sure you'll agree, ladies and gentlemen, as they roar the way it was 90 right. And right now, Sproul not as confident there on approach to the corner, and that's why the gap is able to close down by a 10th on entry. Shahi's ahead, just able to attack the corner a bit more, and now with the draft here, plus also the push to pass, well, Sproul goes defensive to the inside of the S's, and that's going to see now Zaher look all the way around the outside, but will he be able to get it done? We'll have to wait and see here. In towards the chicane they come. Sproul still there, but in the end that's more to try and get Zaher to outbrake himself rather than to do anything solid, and as a result we do see Zaher go a little bit deep. There's contact between the two of them, and it sends Zaher sideways to the barrier, and the Arrive and Drive Racing cars backwards into the barrier, and at this point it's out of the race. And that's so unfortunate. I don't think any malice was meant, but I think both drivers there just not wanting to give each other the space they could perhaps afford to. And will be one that the stewards will definitely take a look at afterwards, and keep an eye, of course, that we only get the camera angles we do see here in the commentary booth. Whereas our stewards, they have all the camera angles under the sun, and they also have the ability to slow the replay footage down if needed. Meanwhile, Leo Domar making his way out of turn number 9. He does still have Adam Merchant for close company. Adam Merchant, the driver who started in 5th place. But Leo Domar right now definitely enjoying a good run at the front of the field. And even if he doesn't take the victory today, I think he could be on course for a potential podium here. And how long's it been since we've seen Leo Domar on the podium? Well, the answer to that question is you've got to go back to the start of season 17, if my memory serves me correctly, with the podium at the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit in the feature race. I think he picked up a double podium there, in fact. That's the last time we did see him on the podium. It's been such a long time for the Frenchman, but at Phillip Island, he definitely showed his championship credentials there, being a very consistent and smart driver. But meanwhile, that was not looking too smart there. Fabian Sanchez and Elliot Court almost came to blows. I think Sanchez tried to cover off Court when Court was coming on really quick in the draft and with the push to pass. So in the end, Elliot Court surprising his rival, surprised himself by going deep there at the chicane. And in the end, well, Court's able to hold on to 4th place, but it's very scrappy from him in terms of sealing that position. But to be fair, clean or not clean, sometimes you just got to get the job done. He does move up into 4th place for now, but Sanchez is right there behind him. As Ray Aguilar and Antonio Bianchi, these two, they've been around since season 1 of this series, if my memory serves me correctly. And well, of course, Antonio Bianchi being your lead administrator for the series. If it were not for him, we would not have the League Zero Formula Series. And a big thank you to him. And Ray Aguilar, he's been there since the inception. And both these drivers right now, they know each other like the back of their respective hands, and both enjoying a good little ding-dong battle for 6th place. But with that in mind, we're going to take a look back in time very quickly to some of the big moments on the start of this race, ladies and gentlemen, and see what exactly went down. Starting with this for Jace Mayer on lap number 1. Now, this was Mayer making his way in towards the bus stop chicane. As he did so, went a little bit deep, and that was the DDK TX Jordan car going around, but Mayer was able to take evasive action, and so Marquez was not fortunate. He was the car that went very sideways. This is what happened from the onboard of Marquez. So, making his way in towards the chicane, too wide there, takes the curb, and the car bounces down and around, and unfortunately gets clipped there by Raf Orti's car as he made his way past on the outside. So that's why Marquez had to tow to the pit lane. This is what it looked like from Orti's perspective when he came through. So this was Raf Orti, who had a really good dive up the inside there. And you'll see Marquez's car comes loose, and Orti just sneaks on through. His front right tyre glances the front wing there of what was Marquez's car and was able to survive it. No puncture, but meanwhile the OTL Motorsport driver will be breathing a big sigh of relief. They had nowhere else to really go. This was on lap number 2 for Finley Fitzsimmons. It all went very wrong for the privateer as he made his way around the outside of Ray Aguilar. No contact between them, but he ran out of road, hit that curb, and unfortunately, that being a raised curb at the edge, it meant the car was going to be bounced around. It was bounced into the barrier there for Finley Fitzsimmons. What was a brave move, it could have been an epic move, turns into a nightmare instead as he just grinded to a halt. On lap number 3, we had this for Robert Nobles, and MSR Purple's woes continued as he tried to make a move there on Nick Peterson, lost the rear of the car, bounced loose, he couldn't quite get it under control through the chicane, and into the barrier there. So a self-induced incident from Robert Nobles, but one he'll learn from. And then we had this for Shahi Zahir only moments later on lap number 4, battling with Matt Sporrell, and well, a bit of an interesting one there between the two of them. Do we have an alternative camera angle? We do. We'll see what we can find with our alternative camera angle. This was from behind him, I believe. And in fact, goodness me, that looks like there might have been a little bit of netcode there, perhaps, where essentially the cars are considered to be coming together, even if they're not visibly coming together on iRacing. It's due to connectivity differences between the drivers. But a bit of an interesting one there. We'll have to reserve judgment on that one as we return to your live racing. As we do, and indeed a bit of a breather from all the on-track action, but not for too long, so of course plenty of excitement still to come. Well, now drivers are starting to settle down here into a much longer race, so strategy becomes the bigger important part, and it does mean that a little bit of tyre management can be key. Now, what can you expect on strategy here? Well, if we base it on the Red Bull Ring, indeed any venues we've been to over the last few seasons, given the fact we are expecting one pit stop for fuel and likely all 4 tyres being changed, given the fact they've done simultaneously, therefore our drivers will normally try to split this race into around about 2 equal halves. Now, there is quite a significant undercut and overcut margin. It is normally plus or minus around about 25% of the race. So it does mean that we could expect some drivers to come in around about lap 11 through to 12 here at Watkins Glen, all the way through to what would be the end of the first 20 laps. We're not expecting everyone to come in on, say, laps 14 to 16, although that's where you would normally pit if you did want to split this race into 2 equal halves. But then again, if you do want to go a bit longer in the race, you will need to save some fuel. And conversely, if you do want to pit early and go longer, you might need to save some fuel after your pit stop, and also you're going to need to protect the tyres. And the tyres in these cars, they do last for quite a long period of time, but there's a noticeable drop-off in level of degradation, particularly after the first 10 laps. But a move being made here. This Nick Peterson up the inside of Toro Mayorga in towards 90 right. A smooth move there. A classic up into 11th place. So now if he was to finish there, he'd be taking 2 points rather than 1 for 12th place, which Toro Mayorga will now be taking. And with the high level of tyre degradation we do see at circuits such as Watkins Glen, where you are constantly leaning on the outside tyre for all these corners, quite high load corners, and also it is a clockwise circuit, which means that the left-hand side tyres are typically on the outside, because there are more right-handers than left-handers. We are expecting tyre wear to be a big factor here, and those who can protect the tyres and make them last longer may actually really come out on top with regards to strategy, because they will naturally just have a bit more pace to roll with. Now, speaking of Elliot Rolls and Elliot Korchesbein, the DDK Racing pair, we know they are typically drivers who can work in both a tyre saving regard, but also very aggressive at pace regard here. But right now, it does seem as though Court is catching up to Rolls, and that's not just the slipstream. Now, I think Elliot Rolls is perhaps struggling a little bit after quite an exciting opening few laps. We will see what's to be here. I wouldn't be surprised if DDK Racing are having their drivers talk on the radio to each other right now, and they're trying to figure out what's the best way to get closer to Merchant and Delmar, who are 2 seconds up the road in their own little battle. Now, what helps the top two, of course, is the fact they have each other to slipstream off of. Although Adam Merchant is closing little by little, but then again, he can afford to fuel save here because he has the draft of the car in front, and he won't use the push to pass here unless he thinks he needs to make the move and that Leo Delmar is holding him up. We're coming on to the straight. Well, here comes Merchant looking around the outside. Immediately puts the push to pass on there. He knows he wants to make the move, and with that, Leo Delmar does not respond other than just tucks in behind. So Leo Delmar here, I think, seeing the writing on the wall, which is stay with the leader rather than try to be the leader. And if he can do that, he will be safe from Rolls and Court, although that gap to Merchant's already up to half a second with that move alone. But still a smooth move there from Adam Merchant, and Leo Demar still in a happy second place. But look in the rear of the pitch and you see the DDK Racing team getting closer. Well, you do look back to Fabian Sanchez in 5th place with Ray Aguilar, and then Antonio Bianchi and Rafa Orti getting closer together. And to be fair to Orti, he's doing a fantastic job here. He's going for 7th place shortly, I suspect, and right now definitely wanting to emerge from the shadow of his teammate of Jaden Callaway. And we're here today as their sole representative for OTL Motorsport. He's doing a brilliant job of it as they come into Hill Bend. Antonio Bianchi, of course, for that dismal qualifying performance, and in race number 1 made up some good places to finish 9th, and Orti here with him having started in 10th. Well, these two have both gained 2 places right now and are both enjoying a good little battle. But I think this is going to be one of those battles that's not settled on what will be the road necessarily. It could be settled in the pit lane. As we ride on board with Orti, having to negotiate that dirty air, which will have a significant effect. It always does. Pulling it over to the right there, that is going to be Bianchi, just trying to break some of the toe for Orti, although really, has that made a difference? Not quite so. Runs quite wide there coming out of turn 1. They can get away with that. They don't pick up a slowdown penalty, but they will pick up an instant point by running wide off of the exit curve of turn 1. Remember, they've only got a finite number of instant points to play with, so they've got to be careful. But meanwhile, Gareth McAllister and Artur Mayorga, they swap places into turn 1. There you can see them together. So McAllister now up into 12th place, last of the points paying positions. Mayorga down to 13th. But I suspect he'll be thinking to himself that he'd stay with his teammate, with Carlos Balanas and Xavier Zaynab still a bit further behind. Meanwhile, we've had something go very wrong for Matt Sproul. He's had to tow to the pit lane, I'm hearing in my ear. In fact, he is in the pit lane to look out my Conte booth window, so Sproul's race has gone backwards again. And, well, it was a disaster at the end of race number 1, and race number 2 has not fared better, a third of the way. And indeed, it seems, though, after a third of the race for Sproul here today, at least at Watkins Glen, his race seems to be absolutely cursed. We'll get a replay of that when we can. But Sproul's out for the counter this one. And we're down from 19 starters now to 14 runners. But to be fair, I think we're dropping drivers as a result of what his drivers just pushing so hard around Watkins Glen. But this is one of those circuits, as we mentioned in qualified, where you've absolutely got to abuse the downforce of the car. The risk threshold here is extremely high in terms of the margins between risk versus reward. This arguably, if you can do well at Watkins Glen, you can probably do it well at most circuits. There's just a brush with the barrier for Apple. That was sparks flying there from the under tray of the car, and also the tyre just grinding on the wall. Orti not wanting to get any closer to the exit barrier turn, and that was literally putting a millimetre away from disaster. But Orti pushing hard now to stay with Antonio Bianchi. At the front, Merchant and Delmar, well, after their swap of position, Delmar staying within 4 to 5 tenths at the moment. As you can see there, Rolls and Court, the DDK Racing pair, and right now defending teams champions. They didn't take the Drivers' Championship last season, but they did take their inaugural crown in the Teams Championship. Well, they're still giving chase to one another, and it does seem as though right now Court very happy to sit behind his teammate. But as they make their way onwards, let's make our way back in time for a brief moment and find out what exactly happened to Matt Sproul back on lap number 10. So this was Sproul, a bit of a lonely race in 9th place at the time, making his way in towards the chicane. As he did so, what went wrong? Oh, the car just went straight on there. Technical issue perhaps for Sproul, but having to tow to the pit lane. Something definitely broken on the car, and in the end, not quite sure what, but definitely out of commission Matt Sproul's car. Meanwhile, we also had this on lap number 10. Gareth McAllister find his way past Arturo Mayorga. A bit of a classic pass between the INCA Salsa racing drivers. And well, there was a bit of a scheduled pass there. And McAllister diving to the inside. And Mayorga making no effort to defend that one. So just deciding to let him go. I think that's team strategy at play there as we make our way back to your live racing. And as we do, well, more laps are queuing up. As meanwhile, Ray Aguilar makes his way around the outside of Fabian Sanchez there. So change of position between those two. So Aguilar now up into 5th place. Sanchez letting that one go. And I think trying to stay with the Squid Gang Racing driver if he can. So change of foot, and very interesting one for Sproul. I think there must have been a technical issue with the car, and that's why he's had to park up there. There's no other reason. Indeed, the car looked A-OK otherwise, exterior-wise. He didn't have a brushing with the barrier at all. I just simply think something's broken inside the cockpit. But meanwhile, we're not breaking away from this action between Aguilar and Sanchez. Well, there was a swap for position, but I think Sanchez may have given up that place in order to see if he can save some time and more importantly, save some fuel behind Aguilar and go deeper into the race. It's a bit of strategy playing out here, although I don't think Aguilar will be thinking to himself, okay, I need to do the same, otherwise they'll just be losing time to the top 4, of which the gap right now from 4th to 5th, from Court to Aguilar, is 3.5 seconds on average. As the cloud comes over Watkins Glen, I'm sure the sun will come back at some point. Raffaelti a bit further behind, but still with Antonio Bianchi. They're fighting over 7th place. And then we do have some quite pronounced gaps to complete the top 10 with Jace Mayer. He's currently in 9th, and Nick Peterson, 5.2 seconds behind. Round off your top 10, the sole arrive and drive racing car at the moment, with, of course, the retirement for Shahi Zahair after his netcode contact, we believe, with Matt Sparrow coming through at turn number 5 on an early lap. Winning, and the two of them having a bit of a coming together. I'm sure they'll talk about it after the race. But as Peterson makes his way through right now, 9, he's got to try and secure the points here for Ivan Drive, who are making their debut round for the season, as of this round having missed the Red Bull Ring. But as they come towards another lap, Adam Merchant, meanwhile, opening up that gap a little bit to Leo Domar. The gap now opened up to, what was 8 tenths there before they made their run down the stretch towards the chicane. So sign of progress, as meanwhile, here's to be a change, or is there? Raffaelti looking around the outside, but both drivers with the push to pass. Oh, and they come into contact, and that is going to send Antonio Bianchi very sideways. Raffaelti in on the grass, avoids the barrier, but Antonio Bianchi is able to get the car turned around, quickly gets off the race in line. Well, a messy instant for both drivers there, but they're able to survive it. That's the most important part. I thought that was going to be in absolute tears. There's Nick Peterson sweeps around the outside of Antonio Bianchi. That was absolutely perfection there for Nick Peterson. But Bianchi right now, well, he's got to cool himself down and think to himself, you know what? You survived it. Many would not, as the car runs wide there from turn number 6. I think there is some damage to the car, and particularly the tyres right now will be scalding hot with that big slide, and then having to spin the car around. That will not have helped the rear tyre temperatures at all. But Bianchi has been able to keep it together. That's the most important part for him, and therefore he's in 10th place. He knows he's got the pace to be further up inside the top 10, but now he's got to get his head down. But I wonder if we'll see him come into the pit lane at the end of this lap. For the reason which is those tyres on his car right now, he will be able to get them back into the ideal operating window, but they will be knackered compared to where they should be. Raffaelti's into the pit lane as well, so that's not a surprise there. That's not meant to be rude, but the fact that Alti's coming, I think, with that contact as well, his tyres will be feeling knackered. But meanwhile, Antonio Bianchi stays out, so he's going to stick to plan A here, albeit a slightly amended plan A, but it's not enough to become a plan B. But Raffaelti comes on down as he makes way down the pit lane. Well, I think this is a drive-through penalty for Alti. I don't think there's a pit stop here. No, that's a black flag he's picked up for instant points, so therefore he's going to come all the way down. He'll drop to the back of the field, he'll drop down to 14th place, and he'll re-emerge, and he'll know he'll have to do it again at some point to come into the pit lane. But meanwhile, Nick Peterson carrying on ahead of Antonio Bianchi, so Bianchi right now will try and come back at him sooner rather than later, and definitely a lot of cloud over the circuit right now. We'll get a replay of that instant between Bianchi and Orti in due course. Peterson just holding his ground here, and all he's got to do at the moment is just think smart, place the car in the right places, and get Bianchi to do the hard work in a car that's already now seen its tyre wear amplified and also its fuel consumption increased a little bit. So Peterson here can think about the strategy perhaps, rather than needing to be overly aggressive in defending this position. So still over half the race to go. It'll be halfway from the end of the next lap. As our American driver stays firmly in that 8th place at the moment. The gap to Jace Mayer being 3.5 seconds up the road. So therefore it does mean right now he's really battling with the driver behind rather than thinking forward. And he has the ability to think of the bigger picture perhaps. Raffaelti and Zainav, they swap places there. Zainav steps aside and decides not to fight with the number 71 driver. I think feeling as though that Alti is the quicker driver here, so it would not be worth his time trying to fight this early on in the race. And therefore smart decision making there for 13th place. As Elliot Rolls and Elliot Court still together, our leaders have separated. Leo Domar has lost a lot of time recently to Adam Merchant, to the tune of 4 tenths a lap over the last couple of laps, so that lead gap now has expanded. But Delmar and Rolls, they are practically matching on time. It's interesting there. So it does seem as though Leo Domar has got pace here for 2nd or 3rd today, but he's not got the pace to chase down Adam Merchant. Now, Merchant, to be fair to him, might be putting together some quick laps just to open up a gap in preparation for the pit stop. Antonio Bianchi still behind Peterson. Meanwhile, that's a change of place for Arturo Mayorga and Carlos Balanas. Balanas going around the outside there, now up into 11th place ahead of Mayorga. It's the INCA Salsa racing driver dropping on back behind the machinery of none other than Rodent GP. 9, there's still more racing to go, but he does not want to part of that fight right now. But as our Raccoon driver makes his way off into the distance in 11th place, well, we take a quick look back at what exactly happened in that instant between Bianchi and Raffaelti, and here's the replay. So this was side by side in towards the bus stop chicane. As they made the way on in, Alti turned in, and Bianchi there looked like he had a bit of a slow transition, and I think that caught Alti out by surprise. Now, that's not to say that Alti may not be in the wrong for this, although we will reserve the right to pass judgment. But can we get an alternative camera angle there from Alti's perspective? So this was on the cockpit, so he has got Bianchi on his right. Bianchi goes in side by side here and comes down Ooh, could this be? It's so hard to tell there, given the speeds and also the fact you do have to back off when you're going too wide. I think Ulti did come quite high on the apex curve there of the left-hander transition, and therefore the Unlimited Motorsport driver may feel as though he might be partially at fault for that one. Either way, he did pick up the black flag for the contact that put him over the instant point limit. Here's another camera angle showing what happened, and I think in the end he may have carried just a bit too much speed for the corner, but again, I think Bianchi as well, too wide. It always takes two to tango, but definitely an interesting one. The stewards will have a lot to consider with that one, albeit those are the only camera angles we have, but both drivers thankfully able to survive it. That's the most important part, and able to carry on racing. Speaking of which, let's carry on with your live racing, ladies and gentlemen, as we make our way back to it. As we do, well, meanwhile, we look back to the very front of the field and going on to his 16th tour of the circuit and soon to be his 17th. Adam Merchant right now coming into the pit lane. So he's decided he's gone far enough, and we do see Leo Domar coming in. Meanwhile, the DDK Racing pair of Rolls and Court, the two Elliots, are staying out. So they're going another lap at least. They're going to go for the overcut here. And Ray Aguilar is going to do the same. So Squid Gang Racing driver feels that the fuel tank can go further, but it does mean that Squid Gang Racing are splitting strategies, with Merchant going for the undercut as your leader. Meanwhile, it's going to be Aguilar going for the overcut here, although I'm a bit surprised that Merchant's coming so early, given the fact that he has been in control at the front. And where is Merchant going to come back out, I hear you ask? We're still waiting for that. Car has just been serviced. Car making its way on down pit lane just in front, but here's Merchant leaving, so he will be the leader of those who have pitted, but is he going to have a driver in front of him? Well, the good news is he's got 3.5 seconds to Gareth McAllister, so Squid Gang Racing have nailed that pit stop and brought him out in nice clear air. He's immediately got the push to pass button on here, so now he knows he's got to pump out some qualifying laps for his next 1 to 3 laps in order to guarantee he'll still be in the lead. He has, of course, come out ahead of Leo Domar, who had a similar length stop, albeit it was a little bit slower getting out of his pit box, and that's meant that gap has now moved up to 2.7 seconds. As behind, we have Carlos Bananas coming in. He's making his way out. Zaire Zainab does the same. So we do have the Raccoon GP cars making their way onwards, sponsored by Canon, and as we do see him coming on down, well, right now Balanas back in 12th place there. Nick Peterson side by side with Antonio Bianchi. Bianchi gets on past, and Bianchi has yet to pit. Meanwhile, Peterson has pitted, so therefore Bianchi right now battling with a driver on a completely different strategy and effectively in a different race at this point, but still trying to see every point all the way through to conclusion. At the front of the field, into the pits, they come your leaders, your DDK Racing pair of Rolls and Court, with Aguilar behind. So will we see the split of strategies with Squid Gang Racing help them out, or will it be remaining in the status quo here as they creep onto lap 18? Jace Mayer comes into the pit lane as well, so it does look as though in the end the fuel tanks could only go a grand total of 18 laps, and well, as we do see that car making its way on past, and that is going to be your 14th place driver Raf Ulti, who's yet to pit. Well, Adam Merchant comes on through in full place, and very shortly back to the very top of the tower. Elliot Court leaves the pit lane ahead of none other than Elliot Rolls, but Leo Domar's the driver trying to beat. Del Mar in the end decides to go very wide at turn number 1, manages to get it back together, albeit not without an instant point being added to his name, and the gap and to Court and Rolls is practically the same as it was when he came into the pit. The gap now at 1.9 seconds, but then again, that's going to give some fluctuation here as Court and Rolls need to get those tyres back up to temperature. Well, indeed, they'll be on fresh tyres now, so they'll need to warm them back up. They have come out the jacket, but they will be roughly around about 30 degrees Fahrenheit lower than where they want to be at this point, so therefore they've got to pump a bit more heat in. Those jackets can't quite keep them as hot as they will be on the sticky tarmac. Coming down towards turn number 6, Court and Rolls separated by 1.5 seconds. Court did have the quicker pit stop, which would be expected by almost a whole second, given the fuel saving he was doing behind his teammate, but now it's going to be heads down all the way to the very end. Meanwhile, Aguilar's come back out in 5th as Fabian Sanchez in 6th, Jace Mayer 7th, Antonio Bianchi in 8th, and then we do have Gareth McAllister right now still chasing after Bianchi, but McAllister is in 9th and Peterson rounds off the top 10. But we believe that Antonio Bianchi, well, we've got a sign saying here that he has yet to pit, but I think that might be a glitch on what is our timing information we have available. We are just going to check that with another source in terms of when Bianchi may have pitted, and the answer is he has pitted. It was on lap 15, so that hasn't been picked up by data, so therefore everyone has made their expected pit stops now, and Antonio Bianchi trying to hold on to 8th place here, with McAllister and Peterson following behind, but now he's got a 2.7 second gap to Jace Mayer, and he is trying to bring that down. Here is Jace Mayer right now for Rodent GP, trying to hold on there, and with a limited amount of push to pass remaining, that's why you are seeing the push to pass slightly blinking there, in the fact he hasn't got as much as he would. When it goes red, it means it's got less than 50 seconds left. They have 200 seconds at the start of the race, and well, of course, that means in the sprint race, they can practically use it every lap. Meanwhile, in the feature race, they have to be a lot more tactical with it, given the fact you can be using it for the best part of 30 seconds around here. You do the mathematics, that is not even 7 laps worth in full use. But as Mayer heads onwards and down towards the bus stop chicane right now, looking comfortable. Albeit Bianchi trying to find a way in at the end. Carlos Vanoff back in 12th place, last of the points paying positions at the moment. And you can see Arturo Mayorga just ahead. Xavier Zainab, his teammate, he has dropped. We are still waiting to see. Rafauti, in fact, who has pitted. We should correct ourselves there. He has made a journey into the pit lane. That happened off camera in a replay. So therefore, he has served his pit stop as well. So he's 14th. And he is currently on the lead lap, although behind him, that is your leader, closing on to him very quickly at a rate of what is about 4 attempts a lap. So Adam Merchant will soon be forcing the blue flags on Rafauti, and he'll be grateful to be able to get on through at a time of most likely his choosing. But as he opens up that gap to Leo Delmar even more by another 2 attempts, a 22.765 for Merchant, a 22.972 for Delmar. Delmar has Elliot Court closing little by little. The gap now down to 1.4 seconds. 2 attempts has been swiped away. Almost 3 attempts, in fact, has been taken away that time around. And Court now will definitely be in distant draft distance. The draft does start to build at 2 seconds. When you get within 1 second, it becomes incredibly pronounced. Essentially, it starts linearly and it becomes exponential in terms of how much speed you start to gain when you get within a 1 second window. That is what Court's got to push through. But of course, when he gets through in a second, he'll start to really feel the negative effects of dirty air, whereby suddenly he'll be losing front end downforce, and the car wants understeer quite aggressively on corner entry, and it opens up the risk of exit oversteer, where essentially the car will go through a very sharp transition from understeer, and at the apex it'll suddenly be understeering, and it'll very quickly switch over to the opposite extreme of oversteer. For the uninitiated, understeer is essentially where the front end of the car leads into the corner and does not want to turn. Oversteer is where the rear end tries to turn around before the front end has settled down, so the rear of the car comes loose. But as the drivers make the way on through, you need to find a perfect balance in driving the Superformula SF23 cars between both. Given the fact they are mid-engine rear-wheel drive, with the engine located behind the driver and the weight concentrated behind the driver, these cars are more prone to what will be oversteer rather than understeer. And again, the fact that in that dirty air, the whole nature of the steer reverses. But on to lap 21 they come, and meanwhile, Fabian Sanchez a bit further back in 6th place at the moment. A bit of a lonely 6th place here, not on the pace of the top 5, but he is comfortably ahead on pace versus the rest of the top 10, with an 8.5 second gap to Jace Mayer. So therefore, it does seem as though he's safe now to be securing these points all the way at the very end of the race. Nick Peterson still trying to chase down Gareth McAllister. I don't think he's going to be able to get close enough here. McAllister is being dropped by Antonio Bianchi, and that's an important question here. Antonio Bianchi is slowly breaking away from McAllister by 3 tenths a lap, but he's also gaining 2 tenths a lap on Jace Mayer, who's only 2 seconds up the road. So on that basis, come what will be the last 2 to 3 laps, we could see Bianchi attacking for 7th place. But Leo Delmar, meanwhile, here he is, chasing after Adam Merchant, but that's not where is Leo Delmar directly behind Merchant, because that was Rafauti going a lap down, and there's Leo Delmar right now under big pressure from Elliot Court. Court is really caught up on this lap, and in fact he has gained a whole second over the lap, and you can see the push to pass is very much active there. So what Court's done is tried to use it to really boost his opportunity. Remember, the push to pass button, it doesn't increase the top speed of these cars, it increases the engine power output by the best part of around 50 brake horsepower from the 550 they have by default to 600. And if we get to your top speed faster, it can be very powerful at a circuit where you've got plenty of acceleration zones, of which here, of course, at this circuit, we don't really reach top speed in the Super Formula car, which is around at 190 miles an hour. It does mean you want to use that push to pass to really drive you towards the maximum possible speeds you can see. The cars will top out in the run towards the bus stop chicane, but otherwise, for the most part, it's short sprints to every corner, and that's why Court wants to use this. But as we look back from the rear of the number 21, and now as they make the way through the S's, well, here comes Elliot Court looking closer and closer, starting to get alongside now as he looks around the outside, powering their way on down towards the chicane. Court's going to go outside to inside here, and Delmar in the end does not fight. It's the braking zone. He's figuring out the bigger picture. Court will sweep on through to take 2nd place, at least for now, but the DDK Racing driver will know that Delmar, by not putting up the fight, he's therefore opted to tuck in, and Elliot rolls 2.5 seconds behind. We wondering right now why Delmar has not come that much closer to him, and it is because Delmar's playing the bigger picture. He wants a podium finish. He doesn't want necessarily to finish 2nd. But meanwhile, we come back to Nick Peterson, side by side with Gareth McAllister. McAllister coming back here as they make the way on down, but in the end, Peterson is able to seal the deal to hold on to and take that 9th place. So the arrive and drive racing driver, as that becomes a bit of a mouthful for a brief moment, holding into 9th place now, and his next target is Antonio Bianchi. albeit Peterson setting a personal best in the second stint on that previous lap of 23.03. He was a tenth quicker than Bianchi, and in turn, a whole 7 tenths quicker than Jace Mayer. Could we have a four-way fight going for 7th place here? Because there is Mayer on screen right now, and the Rodent GP driver makes his way down to the braking zone at 4 Hill, but with Bianchi getting closer quite quickly, and if anything, I don't think Mayer's feeling very confident in that car right now. Those are exit lines there from Hill, and coming out here from turn 9, fine at turn 9, but that exit from Hill was very shallow. I think he's going to protect the tyres a little bit. I wonder if perhaps he's just pushed the tyres a little bit too hard at the start of the stint, and now they're outside the operating window on temperature, and he's having to protect them. Nice and tight exit there coming out of turn number 11. Does not push it. And Tony Bianchi behind to the pit lane. That's surely got to be a drive-through penalty. That would not be a second stop here for the INCA Salsa Racing driver. Indeed, the INCA X Competition 51 team in particular, because if so, they've made a complete bungle of the pit stop. And no, it is a drive-through penalty there. That is the most painful trip to the pits you can take. It's not the longest pit lane here, to be fair, but it is quite a long one, and he's on the limit at every step of the way. But suddenly, it means the pressure is off of Jace Mayer, and Nick Peterson now will find he's got to try and find a way to close down Mayer. And well, that last lap he was 4 tenths faster, but he's going to need a little bit more than that if he wants a couple of laps to go battling towards the very end. And he'll be bringing Gareth McAllister along for the ride, who is staying with him at least at this time. As Elliott Court breaks away from Leo Delmar, the gap now up to almost a second here. Elliott Rose, meanwhile, still trying to give chase to Delmar. The previous lap he was 4 tenths faster. He's going to need a little bit more here if he wants to be able to get into the fight for third place and have some time to fight for it. As right now, well, we'll see what happens this time. Last time around, he was 4 tenths quicker. Elliott Court comes across the line very shortly at 22.3. Then it's a 22.7 for Delmar. For Rolls, a 22.7. It's not enough. He did not gain. In fact, he lost out half a tenth there versus Delmar. Is this as far as Elliott Rolls can go at this point? If he has got any push to pass left, he's going to need to start using it. As otherwise, I think right now, fourth place will be the best he's able to achieve. Ray Aguilar, meanwhile, sitting in fifth. He was 2 tenths slower, so I think fifth place is going to be his determined position here. As meanwhile, Antonio Bianchi up the inside of Carlos Balanas after his drive-through penalty. Well, right now, taking back 11th place, he'll gain an extra point. He'll go from 1 point secured to 2. As Carlos Balanas falls back there, looking to secure that important point for the Raccoon GP team. Going all the way through turns 10 and 11. Bianchi knowing that today, this feature race has not clicked together whatsoever when he was looking for what would have been a confident and comfortable finish inside the top 10. Well, right now, 3 seconds to Arturo Mayorga. He's going some to chase after him. Mayorga is not the quickest out there in terms of pace compared to many, and in theory, Bianchi will be with him for the next 4 laps. However, it's one thing to say, it's another thing to be able to do it, to put theory into practice. Adam Merchant, meanwhile, well, he's gone purple in the middle sector on this lap. He's absolutely flying out there at the moment. Gap now up to 4.2 seconds ahead of Elliott Court. And with the Squid Gang Racing driver absolutely nailing this here. Having started in 5th, missed out on the win just about in the first race of day 2, Elliott Court. But right now, definitely looking to be in control. A new personal best there in the fastest lap of the race, a 22.142. As Court, meanwhile, half a second slower. But I think Adam Merchant right now has just got everything clicking for him and in control. Indeed, these battles spreading out a little bit as Leo Delmar, well, that last time around, he was a 22.7 to Elliott Rolls' 22.6 for a 10th gain for Rolls. But still, Delmar will be safe if he maintains this pace. He's losing to Court gradually. Court was a 10th quicker than him. But you can see the fact that right now, the Rodent GP driver, he hops his way over the apex curve on the entry to the bus stop. He's definitely not just here to make up the order, he's here to chase down those podiums as well. And if he pulls off this podium, this will be an absolutely brilliant one. He's really been able to craft this together. Keep in mind, of course, he started in what was second place. Well, in fact, he started on pole with that 6th place finish in race number 1. He's also on course for an absolutely lovely share of points today, and that is going to nicely boost his way into that top 10 in the championship. And we look forward to him, and that will position him going into round number 3 in a week's time. But still, plenty of narratives here today, and perhaps the biggest narrative of them all, that Adam Merchant wasn't quite able to take the win in race number 1 with that epic 4-way fight for the win. However, he has been able to take the majority of the points here, it would seem, alongside Elliott Court. So both drivers, compared to their mixed fortunes at the Red Bull Ring, they've been able to deliver the results they need today. And Elliott Court will take the most points of everybody with a win in race number 1 and the 2nd place in race number 2. But Merchant will not be too far behind there in that regard. And they'll be practically equal now when mental mathematics comes together. But Court at 22.314, so almost set in the fastest lap of the race. We have personal best there. Ray Aguilar as well, a 22.306. So suddenly he's finding some time. Push the fast button on here. He's going to go for it now. I think he sees an opportunity, given the fact that he was 6 tenths faster, almost 7 tenths faster than Elliott Rolls on that previous lap. I think he's feeling so, you know what, I've saved it all up. I've got 5 laps to go, including this one. I may as well see if I can try and take that 4th place away and give the team a few more points and give himself, on a selfish note, a little bit more pointage as well. Antonio Bianchi We said he would gradually catch up to Arturo Mayorga. He's almost there now as we ride on board with your number 17 driver. And coming on through the left and in towards the right here to complete this lap and go on to their 26th tour of the circuit. Well, of course, he's got to take his time with this one and be careful, just because he doesn't have many instant points to play with now before he does end up being disqualified from this race. No one wants to see that happen to anyone, but he gets very close there into 90 right. Lovely run. And now building up the speed here. You can see Mayorga does have the push to pass on as well. He's trying to hold on to position here, although the car starts to derate there. That's the rear light going off. And coming on through, Bianchi's going to look to the outside here, but they're both at top speed at this point, so now he's got to be really tactical with this. He'll be picking up the side draft little by little. He'll get alongside, but will he make the move here and make it stick? The answer's going to be no, as he taps the rear of Mayorga's car, and well, they both get away with that. I don't know how they do so, but in the end, Bianchi just about misses out on the move, but it could have been madness instead. But thankfully, it was neither, and they kept it together. But Bianchi close there, but Mayorga saying that no, you don't. And well, I can tell you one thing, Arturo right now, he may not be the quickest driver out there, but even he knows when he needs to go defensive, and he put up some brilliant battling, and he puts up a bit of proverbial war. As a new fastest lap race, a 21.99 to nearest 100 from Adam Merchant. He's still absolutely spellbinding out there, and he's now on to 4 laps on the finish. He's just coming through turn number 5, but we're staying transfixed to the battle for 10th place, as Arturo Mayorga right now proven to be a bit of a tricky customer, and Antonio Bianchi trying to find a way to attack him, looking for a better run there coming out to turn number 9 in towards 10. He gets it, but of course no real run in towards 10 and 11 as he now heads towards the next lap. So what will it be this time as we look back from the rear of the INCA Salsa car for INCA Chips Racing, going defensive down towards turn number 1 into 90 right here. That's going to put him offline. That will cost him a lot of momentum here, even being slightly off racing line. And there you can see, look at Bianchi, the momentum going to the corner, immediately on the push to pass there. He wants to get side by side before they top out their speed, and that's going to see Mayorga tuck back in. Now, will Mayorga start to build up in the draft here? He has not got the push to pass active because he knows he's going to pick up enough speed in the toe to stop out the car. Meanwhile, Bianchi absolutely foot to the floor, and also with the overtake on. And well, Antonio Bianchi does finally take that 10th place there. Lovely move from him, but it was a brilliant defense from Arturo Mayorga, being in by just going a bit too defensive into 90 right. He cost himself the momentum he needed to stay safe going into the chicane like the previous lap. Meanwhile, Nick Pearson has Gareth McAllister for close company after passing him earlier on. Well, now McAllister is coming back quite strong here. I think Peterson's running out of tyre life. He seems to be struggling a little bit in terms of race pace, because McAllister on that last lap was 4 tenths faster, and he's been 2 to 3 tenths faster on average for the last 6 laps. So therefore, Peterson now finding himself up against a bit of a proverbial brick wall, but coming through what will be that corner to go on to lap number 28 for themselves. But if McAllister's going to get this done, he's going to need to get it done soon. He is running out of time. Now, what's happening in the battle for fourth place between Elliot Rolls and Ray Aguilar? Well, Rolls has responded to Aguilar's pace. He has turned it up a little bit, so Aguilar is still closing. But the rate of close now, it's only a 10th or 2 a lap. You can see him in the picture together for a brief moment. But right now, the number 72 driver needs to do a lot more here if he wants a chance to move on the final lap. Otherwise, things will stay as they are inside the top 5. And it does seem as though everyone has got the measure of each other, at least for now. Although nobody has the measure of the other Squid Gang Racing car, Adam Merchant, who is absolutely leading this now by 5.1 seconds, almost 5.2 here. And whilst Court has matched him on the previous lap, I think Merchant at this point is now calling it down. And he does not need to risk it as he runs very close to the exit wall there coming out of turn 11, and more 2 to go here at 21.890. He's pushing his Adam Merchant, but does he need to push any more? Well, some would say yes, I think, because if he does not push, he might switch off mentally, and that could lead to him having some mistakes. But that's another fastest lap there, and I think the fastest lap now is certainly in the bag, although Elliot Rolls was close to matching him with 21.91. He was out by 200ths, but Adam Merchant, at least this time, I think is going to be taking the bonus point for what will be the fastest lap of the race. We'll see if he's got any more in the tank here. I think he's one of those drivers right now, much like Ayrton Senna, whereby if he's not driving at 100%, then he just will not be delivering his very best out there. He can't deliver less than 100% as much as possible. But meanwhile, as Elliot Court in second place, still does have Leo Demar trying to stay close. Well, Demar has fallen back. 2.7 seconds is the gap, and Rolls now within 8 tenths. He is picking up a draft off of Delmar, a significant one. Or we can see the push to pass very much on for Rolls. He is really starting to believe he can close this down, but if he's going to do it, it will be on the final lap now. He has left this quite late in the day, but that's credit where it's due to Delmar as well, putting in personal best over the last couple of laps. That last one at 22.44, so not a slow lap. Rolls is half a second faster, but he can only do that for so many laps here. That's the problem he has. And as they come through turn number 9, well, rolling the way towards the final two sweeping bends. And so that gap opens up a little bit more. As meanwhile, oh, hold up a second. One has happened to Nick Peterson. Peterson's car's into the barrier there. That is at turn number 6. It's all in pieces. And, well, we get a quick replay of what's happened to Nick Peterson. That car is down for the count. And here's what happened, ladies and gentlemen. He was running at the time in 8th. He cleared Gareth McAllister a little bit. Came down to the braking zone to shoot bend. Carried a bit too much speed. And the car went straight on into the tyre barrier. And much like for Vinny Fitzsimmons, it was a slow trudge to a halt there. And for Peterson, it was all in bits. As we make our way back to your live racing. And we do need to do so because we are on the final lap, ladies and gentlemen. And here is your leader, white flag waves. And hold up, Elliot Rolls and Leo Demar. They're battling here as they come through the chicane. So it's going to be Rolls getting ahead. We didn't quite catch how that all played out. We will get a replay of it before we bring you results. But we're going to stay live now as it looks like Rolls has used up all the push to pass in order to get this done. Whereas Delmar's going to try and come back at him. And Delmar does have a little bit of push to pass still available, we believe. But what a turn of events there. And now Rolls has moved forward into third place. And Ray Aguilar is only 1.2 seconds back. You can see that he's got his overtake button fully on at this point. He's absolutely using every little bit he's got left there. In fact, the light's completely off of Leo Demar's car. I don't think he's got anything left, in fact. So therefore, they're all running dry right now in the battle for third that could come down to the finish line. But meanwhile, at the finish line, this is going to be an absolute monster driver. They brushes the wall at the very end. And for Adam Merchant, well, he took the risk, but he takes the fastest lap right at the checker flag, a 21.563. Adam Merchant, take a bow. You are a winner and our fastest lap holder. Elliot Court will take second place ahead of Elliot Rolls. Oh, hold up a second. Does he? Yes, he does. Elliot Rolls rounds on the podium. It's a double podium for DDK Racing ahead of Leo Domar. Ray Aguilar just falling short in 5th place. Fabian Sanchez will then be 20 seconds back very shortly seeing his finish line. As here he is, and Sanchez enjoying a very solid run here, a lonely 6th place, but to be fair, the points in the bag and added to his 10th place from race number 1, double points finish for him today. Jace Mayer going all the way from 15th to 7th in the end after a dismal retirement in race number 1, head of Gareth McAllister, who takes 8th place there, securing it from what was Nick Peterson after Peterson's demise on the penultimate lap. And then we will see Antonio Bianchi here make his way on through, and after that drive-through penalty, what looked to be a 7th place finish or a chance at a 6th place off of Jace Mayer. Well, in fact, no, it would have been a 7th place for Jace Mayer. My apologies. Well, Antonio Bianchi in the end having to settle for 9th place. A frustrating end to the day for him. Arturo Miorga, meanwhile, taking 10th place there and taking some solid points home. Head of Carlos Balinas, who finishes in 11th. And then we will see him as your final lead lap finisher, with Rafa Orti and Xavier Zainav completing your top 13. And with all your finishers, Zainav missing out on a point, however, still getting to the finish line, which is always great to see. And Rafa Orti a lap down, taking the final points paying position in 12th. But as all our drivers cool them down, just before we do make our way to take a look at the race results, let's just take a look back at the battle between Elliot Rolls and Leo Domar for 3rd place right at the end on the final lap. So this was the two drivers battling, and as they made the way out of the S's, well, both down the push to pass button, but it was Elliot Rolls who had picked up the toe there and went all in. That was a risky move, but to be fair, he had to risk it at that point, and Delmar had run out of push to pass on the run through the chicane, and that's why he could not come back at Rolls. So Rolls in the end went all in for it and got the job done. A brilliant move there from Elliot Rolls, and definitely a valiant end to his day, taking the final spot on the podium as Delmar hurried as much as he could, but in the end, Rolls just had the safety net there of a little bit of push to pass left if he needed it, and that's what kept him comfortably ahead as well as his own pace. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we make our way back to circuit side, and let's bring you those race results. As we do come on back, indeed, the circuit falls silent. Well, we bring you those results now, subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. And as we can see, well, what a race it was in the end. And Adam Merchant making it victory in the Squid Gang Racing number 4, albeit missing out on the win in race number 1, made sure not to miss out on it twice, and fending off Elliot Court for DDK Racing with that final lap, that monster 21.56, which saw him brush the wall in the final quarter. Well, Merchant in went all in for the fastest lap, guaranteed the bonus point there, plus the victory. So the biggest points of them all in this race. Elliot Court, meanwhile, a brilliant 2nd place drive for DDK Racing ahead of his teammate Elliot Rolls, who took that 3rd place off of Leo Domar on the final lap. And Rodent GP will be gutted to have missed out on their first podium of the season. They got so close to it, but still they know they've got the podium pace. They just need 5% more, and they will be on that podium sooner rather than later. Ray Aguilar taking 5th place there for Squid Gang Racing. And a late burst of pace, but unfortunately not quite the pace over the race distance, but a top 5, he'll be happy with those points. Added, of course, to what was his points from race number 1, with that finish on the podium. And then we did see Fabian Sanchez in 6th place at INCA X Competition 51. A very lonely race for him, not on the pace of the top 5, but well clear of the rest of the field. Speaking of which, Jace Mayer in 7th place there for Rodent GP, perhaps breathing a sigh of relief that Antonio Bianchi had the drive-through penalty, otherwise he would have been under pressure for 7th place, but he was 3 seconds clear of Gareth McAllister, who was 8th there for INCA Chips Racing, head of Antonio Bianchi for INCA X Competition 51. Bianchi's driver in the end saw him finish 9th ahead of Arturo Mioga, who he took the place off of right towards the end, and the INCA Chips Racing driver round off the top 10. A good effort from him. And Carlos Banos was best the rest in 11th place there, 4 seconds behind, but he was a lap ahead of Raffaelti, the last of your points-paying finishers, in 12th place there for OTL Motorsport, who, given how it all played out and the contact between himself and Antonio Bianchi, I think will be grateful with that finishing point. Zaire Zainab was your last finisher, a lap down there in 13th place for Raccoon GP, and Nick Peterson will be classified as a finisher, even though he retired on the penultimate lap of that huge moment at Shoot Bend with a barrier. He was 14th, and then we did see retirements for Max Brielle, Shahi Zahair, Robert Nobles, Finney Fitzsimmons, and Esteban Marquez. And what a race it was, ladies and gentlemen. But all these results, of course, subject to any stewards' inquiries. But as our circuit cools down, indeed, we call time on racing at Watkins Glen today. Well, the Glen has definitely delivered 2 spellbinding races, and will set us up very nicely for another round to come. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, our racing here today is done, and it is time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know how you can get on the grid for the League Zero Formula Series, or if you just want to know a little bit more about the series, its history, and its previous champions, well, for all that and more, we definitely recommend you go to our official website at www.leaguezero.net. And as our website appears on screen, the brilliant website for the absolutely fantastic and premier open-wheel racing series hosted on iRacing, there's never been a better time to get on the grid verse. Now, in the dead centre of the screen, you can see you can get to the beating heart of the community by joining our official Discord, and that way you can get up to speed with the rules, the regulations, the drivers, the staff members, the admins, and we'd love to see you part of the grid. We also do have at the very top there, of course, all the rules and regulations, everything you need to know from the schedule through to how you register. So indeed, the website is the #1 place to go for all things League Zero. But with that as well, we'd like to give a big shout out to our title sponsor, who we couldn't do without, and that is INCA Salsa. And if you are a fan of salsa and are looking to taste the very best, then look no further than INCA Salsa. Contain only the freshest ingredients, no gluten, and no added sugar, just like the finest authentic salsa should. Once you've had a taste of the incredible family recipe salsa from Julio Espino, you'll never want to taste any of the rest. To put yourself in pole position to enjoy the best salsa you'll ever have, do head to INCA Salsa's official website at shop-inca-salsa.myshopify.com today. But we'd also like to take a moment, ladies and gentlemen, to say a thank you to our other series sponsors, including MSR Performance Engineering and also Team Goon Squad. And with that, well, that was round number 2. And next time out, we make our way to Japan for the first of 2 visits to Japan, and we will start in Japan at the Mobility Resort Motegi, previously known as the Twin Ring Motegi, but a name change quite recently. What has not changed is the ability for this circuit to absolutely deliver, and that's why it's on the calendar of the real-life Super Formula Series in the past and present, and most likely the future. With all the racing action scheduled to happen on Thursday, the 2nd of April, 2026, come join us if you were live on Friday, the 3rd of April, as we continue the story. And the story today, in the absence of Jaden Calloway, we got to see Squid Gang Racing and DDK Racing go back and forth in both races for victory, with one team taking the win in what was the sprint race and the other taking victory in the feature race. But if Jaden Calloway is back in a week's time, will we see On Limit Motorsport back on top, or will it all be shuffled around once again, and where exactly will the fights be? All that and more, come tune in next time. But until then, we have been League Zero, and I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. You've been tuning into a Paul Walsh production, and until our next round, as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.